Chapter 22-28. Compared to Yi Shiwen, who had just risen, the Divine Union leader had accumulated power in the entire mysterious world for thousands of years and was deeply rooted in everyone's hearts. Before Yi Shiwen had appeared, the Divine Union had been the #1 entity in the mysterious world. It could almost be said that there was no one stronger than them. Although Yi Shiwen had broken their legend, the power that had been deeply rooted in their bones couldn't be erased in a short time. What was even more terrifying was that the Divine Union leader had actually already proven his Tao. This was the scariest part. In their opinion, a Divine Union leader who hadn't proven his Tao was already very powerful, but a Divine Union leader who had proven his Tao was practically invincible. Despite the strength that Yi Shiwen had displayed, they were still very worried. There was nothing they could do about it, as his power was just too deep. Thanks to these people's introductions, the people of the ancient, desolate region finally realized that this was such a powerful big shot. Nowadays, those with some cultivation bases in the ancient, desolate region would usually head to the mysterious world and start from scratch, struggling bitterly. The Divine Union leader was also a supreme existence in the mysterious world. The Divine Union leader frowned slightly. He was obviously very disappointed that he hadn't been able to kill Yi Shiwen in one go. Yi Shiwen sneered and said, "I can wear out iron shoes in fruitless searching, only to find you effortlessly. I was still wondering where to look for you, but it seems like I don't need to anymore. It's a pity that you still have some strength left. I should have killed you with my halberd." The Divine Union leader couldn't help but shake his head. However, his tone was extremely confident. He had originally been the #1 entity below the Tao validation realm. Now that he had seized the opportunity, he was obviously bursting with confidence. "You want to kill me? I'm afraid you won't be able to," Yi Shiwen said coldly. His face was expressionless, so no one could guess what he was thinking. The Divine Union leader couldn't help but sneer. "What's wrong? Are you trying to stall for time? The great Yi Shiwen is actually using such a method? Unfortunately, it's useless. I won't give you a chance to recover." The Divine Union leader made his move instantly. The tyrannical sky halberd in his hand was like a long dragon that smashed everything in its path as it charged towards Yi Shiwen. Just as he had said, he simply wouldn't give Yi Shiwen any chance to recover. After all, he knew very well that this was a mortal enemy. If he let Yi Shiwen off and gave him a chance, he would be courting death. "Are you kidding me? Do I need to waste time to deal with you?" Yi Shiwen shouted and made his move. Divine radiance fell like raindrops. It looked dazzling and dreamy. In his hand, the laws of Sword Tao formed. These laws formed talismans and intertwined into a huge chain that wrapped around his hand. The sky-breaking sword was unleashed abruptly. Sword lights scattered like raindrops, forming a massive silver river that blasted towards the Divine Union leader's sky-dominating halberd. Bang! Both sides took a few steps back. The Divine Union leader's face was extremely ugly. Although it seemed like they were evenly matched, Yi Shiwen was currently at his lowest point. The power in his body had already been sucked dry, so he was at his weakest. Even so, he still couldn't do anything to Yi Shiwen. The disparity between the two of them didn't need to be described. His eyes were filled with disbelief. How could this be? He was a dignified expert who had proven his Tao. How could he be inferior to someone who had yet to prove his Tao? This was completely illogical. He didn't want to believe it. Yi Shiwen had a fanatical look on his face as he laughed heartily. "Ah, just in time. I haven't spilled enough divine blood today. I want the entire star to be stained with divine blood." He had originally been very worried that the Divine Union leader was up to mischief in the dark. It wouldn't be surprising if such a person would prove his Tao in the future. If he was hindering the Divine Union leader and did something that he would regret, then it would be difficult to make up for it even if he killed the Divine Union leader 1,000 or 10,000 times. Therefore, the best way was to nip the problem in the bud. In other people's opinion, meeting another god after a bloody battle with a god was extremely unlucky. However, this was a pleasant surprise for the Divine Union leader. The Divine Union leader was really blessed by the heavens. He didn't seem dispirited at all as he stood in the distance. He took a step forward, and the sound of wind and thunder was heard. A pair of wind and thunder wings finally appeared behind him. When they extended, they covered the sky and covered the sun. In an instant, he had already charged towards the Divine Union leader. Human Tao Fist. He clenched his hand into a fist and punched out, directly transforming into an incomparably huge world of humanity. Countless stars paled in comparison to this world of humanity. There was no way for them to compare at all. Moreover, his strength was still frantically suppressing everything else. He had already sublimated it to the extreme. The Divine Union leader didn't think too much at this point. The tyrannical sky halberd in his hand suddenly blasted out, and dazzling divine rays shot out. The dazzling divine rays were a kind of frightening power that directly penetrated the human Tao world and collided with Yi Shiwen's fist. Clang! Yi Shiwen's fist collided with his fist, but it didn't produce sparks. Instead, it produced a terrifying energy storm. It crushed and shattered everything in the surroundings. It seemed as if he and Yi Shiwen were on a completely different level. Thump, thump, thump. Both sides retreated a little. Both of them had taken the tyrannical path. Yi Shiwen's gilded tyrant form was a martial art that could only be refined after evolving the word tyrannical to the extreme. His appearance didn't show it normally, as if he was easy to get along with. However, his heart had already been tempered into a tyrant that wouldn't allow anyone to go against his wishes. The Divine Union leader had been the overlord of the mysterious world for countless years. He had deeply grasped the essence of the word tyrannical and could display 100% of his strength with the tyrannical sky halberd in his hand. Both of them were very impressive. Boom! 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 There wasn't even time to relax. Both sides directly fought each other in midair. It was even more intense than the battle between Yi Shiwen and the Abyss Devil King. It was also much more exciting. The spectators in the distance were trembling with fear. At this time, no one cared about what they could learn from this battle, because they were very clear that this battle would determine their life and death. It would determine their future. The two of them took similar routes, and their fighting styles were also very similar. This was the second time they had fought, and it could be said that they were both familiar with each other and unfamiliar with each other. In their last fight, both of them had revealed their trump cards, and this time, both of their trump cards were many times more tyrannical than before. That was why they were both familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. At the moment, the Abyssal Demon Master took advantage of this rare opportunity to quickly sit down and recover from the injuries on his body. Although his physical body was a divine shell and his recovery ability was astonishing, he had already fallen from the Tao validation realm and couldn't be compared to before. Furthermore, the injuries on his body were very menacing, so he simply didn't have a chance to recover. All he could do was vomit blood as he watched the battle between Yi Shiwen and the Divine Union leader in the sky with a strange expression. He knew both of them. In fact, he might have known them even longer than Yi Shiwen had known the Divine Union leader. Not long after he had escaped, he had tried to rule the mysterious world. Compared to the ancient barren land, the mysterious world wasn't inferior. More importantly, there were many experts that he could subdue and use to conquer and rule over the various realms. However, he had never imagined that he would encounter the Divine Union leader at his first stop. In the end, he hadn't been able to gain any advantage over the Divine Union leader. Although he had cultivated for far longer than the Divine Union leader, the Divine Union leader wasn't inferior to him in the slightest. This made him remember this arrogant junior. Then he had settled for the next best thing. He had extended his demonic claws into the ancient barren land, intending to devour it in one go. Who would have thought that he would encounter a freak like Yi Shiwen? In his opinion, Yi Shiwen was much more formidable than the Divine Union leader. Back then, the Divine Union leader had merely chased him away, while Yi Shiwen had nearly killed him. However, he had never imagined that the person who had saved him from Yi Shiwen would actually be his archenemy from back then. The Divine Union leader, the strongest opponent he had ever wanted to truly rule the mysterious world. He had never imagined that in just a few short years, the Divine Union leader would appear and even enter the Tao validation realm. Such a leap in strength was really shocking. In the Abyssal Demon Master's opinion, the other party's motive for saving him wasn't complicated. However, it wasn't important what he thought at the moment. What was most important was how he could recover the most strength in the shortest time possible. Although they could still be considered allies, one mountain couldn't compare to two tigers, unless one was male and the other was female. As he watched the two parties engage in a fierce battle, he couldn't help but warn the Divine Union leader, "Be careful. Be careful of Yi Shiwen's sword intent. His sword intent is very powerful." The Divine Union leader didn't reply. He had also clearly seen the battle just now. Yi Shiwen's sword intent had suddenly erupted at the last moment, catching the Abyssal Demon Master off guard and causing him to be stabbed by his sword. In the end, he couldn't even protect his Dao Validation Realm Dao fruit. However, he still felt disdain in his heart. This old fella who relied on his seniority to cultivate to this point still had an ordinary cultivation base. He looked down on Yi Shiwen from the bottom of his heart. There wasn't even a need for the Abyssal Demon Master to remind him. He let out a soft shout, and the tyrannical sky halberd in his hand started to tremble frantically. It underwent a miraculous transformation as it continuously attacked Yi Shiwen in an attempt to kill him. Yi Shiwen wasn't to be outdone either. His 6 paths of reincarnation fist wasn't any weaker. He actually gradually recovered and became stronger as he fought. Chapter 22-29. Yi Shiwen had made another breakthrough during the battle with the Abyssal Demon Master. The opportunity to fight against a god was extremely rare. What is a deity? It is a deity who knows everything. There are no secrets in the world. This didn't mean that a god knew everything, but that he could understand everything with just a little bit. He could deduce many things from one instance. He could deduce many things from one instance. He could deduce many things from one instance. Although Yi Shiwen hadn't gone through the baptism of the divine tribulation, he had the mysterious space. This was the foundation of his transformation. His progress was even more terrifying than that of an ordinary god. After this battle, he had completely grasped his own power and was able to display every bit of it perfectly. The truly terrifying battle had just begun. Bang! 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 Every collision was like a huge drum that shook the entire universe. Many powerful beings in the depths of the universe knelt on the ground in fear and didn't dare raise their heads. In the face of such power, they were as lowly as ants. Yi Shiwen was like a god of death. His strength was recovering with every passing second. Compared to the time when he was fighting with the Abyss Devil Lord, his strength hadn't changed, but it had become even more terrifying. This was the result of having complete control over one's own strength. He had only used his fists to beat up the Divine Union leader, who was wielding a tyrannical sky halberd. He was a truly terrifying expert. The leader of the Divine Union was extremely sullen. He hadn't expected that Yi Shiwen wouldn't become weaker. On the contrary, he would become even stronger. His might was boundless, and he could crush everything in his path. No one could contend against such power. This won't do. Is the Divine Union leader the #1 person in the world, only at this level? Yi Shiwen shouted and defeated the leader of the Divine Union. Then, he opened his mouth and sucked in all the Lingqi in the sky. His strength had recovered a lot, and he was now able to contend against the leader of the Divine Union. Don't be arrogant. The Divine Union leader's face was flushed. He was completely infuriated by Yi Shiwen. What are you waiting for? You've already ignited your Dao fruit. You should join forces with me to kill him before his power is completely reduced. Otherwise, do you think he will give you another chance when his power recovers? Ha 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 ha. How many years has it been? How many years has it been? Why have I cultivated so hard for so many years? It wasn't easy for me to prove my Dao, yet I've encountered such a situation. The Abyss Demon Lord laughed heartily. His aura, which had already been suppressed, surged up again. He actually wanted to suppress all his injuries and sublimate to the extreme. The battle with Yi Shiwen would be even more tragic than before. After this battle, even if he won, he would probably die. Even if he managed to survive, he would no longer have any hope of reconfirming his Dao. Of all the things you shouldn't have done, you shouldn't have stood in front of me. You want to encroach on the things that I want to protect. Yi Shiwen indifferently said. Howell said, is this fate? But I don't believe in fate. I, the Abyssal Demon Lord, will let the entire world know that fate cannot manipulate me." The abyssal demon lord roared in grief and indignation. He was already on the verge of insanity. At this moment, there was no longer any path of retreat. It's meaningless to talk about all this. Today, God's blood must be shed across the entire universe. Yi Shiwen's expression was ice cold. At this point, he had actually calmed down. If he wanted to defeat such a strong opponent, he couldn't afford to be the slightest bit careless or make the slightest mistake. Yi Shiwen took a step forward. Between the two of them, he chose to kill the abyssal demon lord first. The abyssal demon lord had already been seriously injured by him. No matter what, he couldn't compare to the divine union leader. He turned into a sky full of golden light and rushed to the front of the abyss demon lord. He directly punched out with the human Dao fist, directly causing the entire universe to shatter into pieces, completely shattering. All the planets collapsed and fell down. Bang! The abyssal demon lord was blasted away by the fist. His physical body was torn apart along with the universe, and fresh blood spurted out. Even though he had already recovered to his peak, he still didn't have the slightest chance of winning against Yi Shiwen, who had already transcended. No matter how strong he was, there would only be one outcome. The abyssal demon lord ignited his spirit in an attempt to reassemble his physical body. However, how could Yi Shiwen give him such a chance? He smashed his physical body once again on the spot. Upon seeing that things couldn't be done, the abyssal demon lord's spirit ignited with all its might in an attempt to escape from Yi Shiwen's hands. There was no meaning in continuing to fight. His determination to die had also been shattered by Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen didn't even give him a chance to reincarnate. At the same time, the Divine Union leader's attack had already arrived. The tyrannical sky halberd swept out, shattering the universe and the galaxy. This attack was earth-shattering. The long halberd pierced Yi Shiwen's palm, but it was blocked by his bones. Yi Shiwen's bones were like a godly weapon. Even a godly tool couldn't pierce through them. His bones were truly tyrannical to a terrifying extent. Even the Divine Union leader's attack couldn't help but stagnate. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Yi Shiwen opened his mouth and whistled out a sword river, which went straight for the abyssal demon lord's spirit that was escaping. The abyssal demon lord's spirit wanted to drag his physical body away. The importance of the divine shell was self-evident. As long as there was even the slightest possibility, he didn't want to give up. Without the divine shell, he had no other choice but to fall into a deep sleep and be reborn. However, it had now become a burden. Yi Shiwen's sword river left as quickly as it came. Almost in an instant, it suddenly slashed down. The abyssal demon lord screamed miserably. Even his physical body and spirit were destroyed by Yi Shiwen, turning into energy that filled the sky. His blood essence was also absorbed by Yi Shiwen's Tianyuan mirror. All the blood essence of a deity was absorbed by him in one breath. His aura rose steadily, and in an instant, it surpassed the peak and reached an unbelievable level. He had not yet stepped into the 9th level of Paong, but his strength had almost reached the peak of the entire level. Compared to when he was at his peak, this strength was a full 30% stronger. Although it was only a 30% increase, the combat power that Yi Shiwen could display was already completely different. The Divine Union leader couldn't help but be scared out of his wits when he saw Yi Shiwen use the Great Technique Conversion Technique to refine the Abyssal Demon Lord's power in an instant. Even an expert at his level would be scared to death upon seeing this scene. No one wanted to be refined by Yi Shiwen directly. However, it was already too late for him to retract the tyrannical sky halberd. Yi Shiwen grabbed the halberd with one hand and used it as a leverage point to charge towards the Divine Union leader in an instant. Then he swept his leg out. It was as fast as lightning and tore the sky apart, causing the entire universe to fuse with this terrifying kick. Bang! The Divine Union leader's entire body was sent flying by Yi Shiwen's kick. It seemed as though something was faintly separating from his physical body as he was sent flying thousands of miles away. A mouthful of fresh blood sprayed out like rain and splattered everywhere in the universe. The people in the distance were all envious. This was divine blood. If they could obtain even a drop, their cultivation base would improve tremendously and reach an unimaginable level. There wasn't a single part of a god's body that wasn't a treasure trove. However, such opportunities were very rare. How many people possessed the ability to slay gods? Most of them were gods themselves. Even though they were also gods, the godly shell was an extremely precious existence. It was impossible for them to let these people take it away. At the same time, they felt a sense of sympathy for the loss of their own kind. They were truly the same kind of people. Those who hadn't reached Tao validation were all like ants. Seeing ants desecrate the corpses of their own kind would make them feel sympathy for the loss of their own kind. Sure enough, Yi Shiwen grabbed the sky full of flesh and blood and received it into his body. He then operated the transforming power technique and refined the essence and blood of these flesh and blood. His aura became even more tyrannical. Yi Shiwen could clearly see that the thing that was about to separate from the Divine Union leader's body was a divine shell that had been dead for a long time. This was like a bolt of lightning that streaked across his mind. He understood everything in an instant. He finally knew how the Divine Union leader had reached Tao validation. It turned out that the Divine Union leader had actually forcefully devoured a divine shell and devoured its cultivation base before forcefully proving his Tao validation. This method naturally had a lot of hidden dangers. Just the fact that it couldn't be fused made many people fearful. However, the fact that the Divine Union leader had been able to use this method to validate his Tao validation showed that he was indeed an outstanding talent of his generation. It was no wonder that he was considered the only person in the entire mysterious world who had a chance of proving his Tao validation. This was different from Yi Shiwen's Great Technique Conversion Technique. Yi Shiwen's Great Technique Conversion Technique refined all the power and transformed it into power that he could use. However, the Divine Union leader had forcefully fused and devoured the essence and cultivation base of the divine shell. Even if he had truly completed it, he wouldn't have known who it would become. Perhaps it would have affected each other, which was tantamount to giving up oneself. Was the desire to validate his Tao that intense? This was something Yi Shiwen couldn't understand. If the same thing had happened to him, he wouldn't have been willing to give up his self in order to obtain greater power. He only followed one principle, which was to turn it into his own use and be used by him. It was obvious that the Divine Union leader hadn't completely fused with the divine shell yet. He had hurriedly come to find trouble with Yi Shiwen after proving his Tao validation. What a pity! If he had completely fused with the divine shell and relied on its cultivation base when it had been alive, he might have been able to advance further. When that time came, his powers would truly be monstrous, and even Yi Shiwen wouldn't be able to do anything to him. However, he didn't care. He rushed over and killed his way over. This was a great opportunity. In an instant, he arrived in front of the Divine Union leader. The sky-breaking sword had already appeared in his hand, and he slashed down ruthlessly. Chapter 22:30. The long sword slashed down and split the sky and earth in half. The Divine Union leader simply couldn't resist it. The entire universe was torn apart by Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen was indifferent and domineering as he stood in the void like a true emperor. His black hair fluttered in the wind like an unparalleled demon god looking down on the world. This battle had already reached an unimaginable level. It could be said that the three parties had used incomplete Tao bodies to display frightening strength that far exceeded that of ordinary gods. Needless to say, the Divine Union leader hadn't reached the Tao validation realm yet, but his combat strength had far exceeded that of a Tao validation realm expert. Although the Abyssal Demon Master had reached the Tao validation realm, he had sustained injuries that were difficult to heal. As for the Divine Union leader, he had barely reached the Tao validation realm by relying on external forces. However, they had relied on all sorts of methods to erupt with frightening combat strength. It could be said that their trump cards were astonishing. At this stage, it was really difficult to kill them. Everyone couldn't react. They simply couldn't believe that Yi Shiwen, who hadn't reached the Tao validation realm, had already slaughtered two mythical realm experts. This was an unimaginable battle. All the outstanding talents from ancient times to the present are overshadowed by him. He is the strongest demigod in history. There's no suspense about his Tao validation realm. It all depends on when and how he chooses to do it. At this moment, everyone clearly understood how powerful and terrifying Yi Shiwen was. Gods were the final destination of everyone's cultivation. However, it didn't seem to be an obstacle in front of Yi Shiwen. They didn't know whether Yi Shiwen was the strongest demigod in history, but he was indeed the strongest demigod they had ever seen or even recorded in the ancient books. This battle was too tragic. Many gods had fallen, and there was probably more than one of them. The Divine Union leader dragged the body that Yi Shiwen had chopped off and fled into the depths of the universe. At this moment, the situation was completely reversed. However, Yi Shiwen, who had gone to great lengths to track him down, definitely wouldn't give him a chance to escape. They killed their way into the depths of the universe. Yi Shiwen's fists smashed down fiercely, domineering, earth-shattering, and invincible. In such a battle, no one could hold back. It was a battle of life and death. The entire universe was on the verge of collapsing from their battle. The Divine Union leader kept using his tyrannical sky halberd to retaliate, but he simply couldn't do anything to Yi Shiwen. He was completely beaten back. Yi Shiwen only relied on his pair of iron fists to chase the god all over the universe. The aura in the sky and earth had already become chaotic. The Divine Union leader kept releasing divine arrays, and the Tao patterns that belonged to the gods flickered incessantly, forming a powerful defense that enveloped him. This was a powerful means of self-protection. Yi Shiwen was like a divine dragon as he swept across the universe. He raised his leg high up in the sky and kicked downwards at lightning speed. He was the best in the world and had kicked through everything. Boom! In the sky, all the Tao patterns were shattered. The Shenzhen formed by the Tao patterns was also shattered. Half of the universe was shattered by the kick. Then, Yi Shiwen directly crossed over, raised his fist, and punched out. The divine radiance that burst forth was like the first ray of light in the world, shattering everything and announcing a new life. Yi Shiwen had already used all his strength. On the other hand, the Divine Union leader had also gone crazy. He had been forced into a corner by Yi Shiwen, so he had no other choice. The tyrannical sky halberd streaked across the sky and blasted towards Yi Shiwen. Clang! The tyrannical sky halberd directly bombarded Yi Shiwen's body. However, it was blocked by the devil beckoning banner that was covering the surface of his body. The countershock force was absorbed by the five elements' great formation and transformed into the power of the five elements. Not only did it not injure him, but it also made him even more tyrannical. Meanwhile, Yi Shiwen's fist struck the Divine Union leader's chest directly. Blood splattered out of the Divine Union leader's chest on the spot. His flesh was badly mutilated, blood splattered everywhere, and bone fragments swirled in the air. He didn't have the time to stand firm, but he had nowhere to retreat. All he could do was raise his chi and raise his power to its peak, as Yi Shiwen had already pounced over once again. Right now, Yi Shiwen had simply gone crazy. He really didn't want to give the Divine Union leader any chance of survival. The entire world was turning upside down. Boom! There was another loud sound. He didn't have time to withdraw his tyrannical sky halberd, so he could only raise his fist and meet Yi Shiwen's attack head-on. After a shocking collision, the Divine Union leader let out a blood-curdling scream as his entire arm was blasted off by Yi Shiwen. His entire body was also blasted thousands of miles away by this terrifying force. His face was deathly pale, and his face was dripping with cold sweat. His entire arm had been blasted into a bloody mist by Yi Shiwen. At this moment, he truly understood how terrifying Yi Shiwen's fist was. Its power was already indescribable. However, the previous collisions had basically been blocked by the tyrannical sky halberd, so most of the force had been completely neutralized. Therefore, he hadn't truly experienced how terrifying it was. However, when he really faced Yi Shiwen with his bare hands, he truly understood how terrifying the force of each of Yi Shiwen's fists was. Shattering the galaxy with a single punch definitely had the power to do so. The exchange between the two of them had already surpassed the level that ordinary people could understand. The force of Yi Shiwen's hand was massive and frightening. His entire arm was blasted off, and blood splattered for thousands of miles. The Divine Union leader retreated frantically as he started to reconstruct his body in a bid to evade Yi Shiwen's killing blow. The injury on his waist, which had been severed by Yi Shiwen, had yet to fully recover. Thus, this was undoubtedly an additional injury on top of his previous one. The recovery ability of the Divine Shell was astonishing. However, it had still been forced into such a miserable state by Yi Shiwen. His injury hadn't healed yet he had been severely injured by Yi Shiwen once again. If you want to leave, then stay here today. Yi Shiwen's rebuke spread throughout the entire cosmos. The Tao realm formed by the human Tao fist enveloped the Divine Union leader. No matter how he tried to break free, it was simply useless. He simply couldn't break free from Yi Shiwen's fist. Boom! He was once again blasted by Yi Shiwen, and his entire body crumbled on the spot. He was in an even worse state than the abyssal demon master from before. He wasn't a match for Yi Shiwen at all. His entire body crumbled immediately. His physical body had just reconstructed in midair when Yi Shiwen, with his sharp eyes and nimble hands, stomped down directly, shattering thousands of miles of the cosmos. The Divine Union leader's physical body, which had already been reconstructed, was completely destroyed on the spot, revealing the spirit within. Yi Shiwen grabbed it in his hand and crushed it. Then, he handed it over to the mysterious space within his body to analyze many of the mysteries of the gods. This could be said to be crucial for him to prove his Tao in the future. Meanwhile, his essence blood was also absorbed by Yi Shiwen and sealed within his body. He didn't have time to absorb it now, as he really didn't have much time left. The curtains of the divine battle had finally fallen. Yi Shiwen had fought two gods at the same time. However, he hadn't died in the end. On the contrary, the more he fought, the stronger he had become. On the contrary, the two gods that he had fought had both died. This was what had truly shocked everyone. Everyone was shocked, as if they were still reminiscing about the battle just now. Two gods had just proven their Tao, and it was only natural that their glory should have just begun. Who would have thought that they would die at Yi Shiwen's hands just like that? Even their divine souls had been captured by Yi Shiwen, and they didn't even have the chance to reincarnate. Their glory hadn't even begun, and they had already fallen. This was completely shaking the values in their hearts. They had originally thought that the gods would never fall, but they had died just like that completely in front of them. Of course, at their level, they were naturally very clear that the so-called eternal gods would never die, and so on were all jokes. How could that be possible? After all, the ancient barrens wasn't a small place. There had been two extremely glorious periods in the past, and a large number of gods had appeared. Now, they had either left or fallen. But what really shocked them was that Yi Shiwen, who had slaughtered two gods, hadn't actually proven his Tao. He had yet to prove his Tao, and he was already so terrifying. What would happen after he had proven his Tao? They thought of many things, and some people's Tao hearts were even shaken. Was it really useful? Was it really useful to prove his Tao? In the end, they still died, and they died at the hands of someone who hadn't proven his Tao. The atmosphere of the entire ancient barrens was very oppressive and tense. The battle between Yi Shiwen and the Abyss Demon Master went all the way into the depths of the universe. Not everyone had the ability to keep up with the two of them to watch. Most people could only wait in fear in the ancient barrens, waiting for the news to come out. They wanted to know who the winner was between the two who dominated their lives. Apart from the demons, most people still hoped that Yi Shiwen could win. Because no matter what, if Yi Shiwen won, they could still have a way out. But if the Abyss Demon Master won, the entire ancient barrens might become a demonic land. When the Abyss Demon Master hadn't proven his Tao, he might still be afraid of the trump cards left behind by the major races in the ancient barrens. But now that he had proven his Tao, these were nothing. Those trump cards and trump cards might be useful against demigods, but they were useless against real gods. The strength of gods had already surpassed the level that everyone could understand. Just like this time, when the three of them chased and attacked, They destroyed a large area of the universe. The number of universes that were destroyed in their hands was simply innumerable. No one could resist such power. And finally, the news that Yi Shiwen had defeated the Abyss Demon Master came back. Many people breathed a sigh of relief, but at the same time, they were also a little disappointed. Why didn't it end with both of them suffering? If both of them could suffer, it would undoubtedly be the best ending for everyone. Unfortunately, the news brought back by the top experts of the major forces had inadvertently disappointed many people who harbored ulterior motives. With their return, more details of this battle were revealed in front of everyone. The world shook. Chapter 2231. Who could compare to such a brilliant battle record? He hadn't reached the Tao validation realm yet he had done something that ordinary experts at the Tao validation realm couldn't do. In this battle, as a demigod, he had consecutively killed 2 deities. With such strength and such a battle record, he could definitely be said to be famous in history. No one could ignore such an existence. Since ancient times, such examples hadn't been seen many times. Furthermore, this had been said by the Abyssal Demon Master and the Divine Union leader themselves, which added some credibility. Prideful beings like them disdained lying about such matters, as there was simply no need to do so. The entire ancient wilderness wasn't calm. Everyone realized that it was only a matter of time before Yi Shiwen reached the Tao validation realm. Nobody doubted whether Yi Shiwen could reach the Tao validation realm anymore. This didn't need to be said. It was nothing more than when he would reach the Tao validation realm, how he would reach the Tao validation realm, and where he would do it. Similarly, everyone realized that their cultivation path wasn't wrong. Yi Shiwen's existence told them that they weren't wrong. Their path was feasible. Even though countless years had passed, this path to immortality was still the correct one. The entire ancient wilderness had surrendered to Yi Shiwen. Nobody could resist a deity. Furthermore, this was an era where deities had withered and no one had reached the Tao validation realm. Although Yi Shiwen hadn't reached the Tao validation realm yet, he seemed to have reached the Tao validation realm. This was the most crucial point. In everyone's opinion, what was the difference between him and those legendary deities that had reached the Tao validation realm? Under such circumstances, it couldn't be any easier for the human race to recover their lost territories. Yi Shiwen didn't even need to do anything. His subordinates would be able to handle these matters in an orderly manner. After witnessing Yi Shiwen slaughter 2 deity-level experts with their own eyes, these people completely surrendered to him, even if they had some ulterior motives. Nobody could contend against such an expert. Even though they were only half a step away from reaching the Tao validation realm, it was impossible for them to reach the Tao validation realm unless they had a fortuitous encounter. This was the difference between heaven and earth. Yi Shiwen reaching the Tao validation realm was only a matter of time. In front of such a great person, they did not dare to show the slightest disrespect. While Yi Shiwen was staying in the ancient wilderness, the top experts of various clans, as well as the hidden old monsters, also came to visit him one after another. Even some ancient creatures in the forbidden area that Yi Shiwen had originally wanted to exterminate but couldn't. Although they were tyrannical and had extraordinary bloodlines, they were still mortal beings. Yi Shiwen was already comparable to the existence of Tao confirmation no matter what. So, they couldn't help but respect him. Although they claimed to be able to survive the era of the rise of the kings and had means to deal with the gods, it was mainly because the kings didn't have much interest in them at that time. They were too lazy to deal with them. However, Yi Shiwen was different. Yi Shiwen had already put out the idea and style of wanting to flatten the forbidden area a long time ago. They couldn't help but tremble with fear. They could only come to visit him one by one. It didn't matter how arrogant they were. However, even a dragon would have to coil up and a tiger would have to lie down in front of Yi Shiwen. If they didn't come out, Yi Shiwen wouldn't have known. As soon as he came out, he couldn't help but be shocked. In the ancient wilderness forbidden area, there were actually wild beasts of the myth realm. There were even many at the peak of the myth realm. It was rumored that they had witnessed the era of the rise of the kings. Now, it seemed that the rumors were not false. These wild beasts originally had extremely long lifespans. Coupled with some special means, They had survived from ancient times until now. Yishuan thought about it. He was too naive in the past. He wanted to flatten these forbidden areas when he was only in the mysterious realm. These wild beasts had lived for so many years, and many of them had extraordinary bloodlines. They were born with martial arts inheritance. The ancient wilderness was not inferior to other worlds. After such a long time, it was normal for a few myths to appear. However, the hundreds of mythical creatures still gave him a fright. It was no wonder that many foreign forces did not dare to act recklessly, even though they were eyeing the ancient wilderness covetously. Even if there were abyssal demon masters among them, these wild beasts of the myth realm and some old monsters who had survived through means were naturally a great threat to the ancient wilderness. However, they were also a great deterrent to foreign forces. It could be said that there were both advantages and disadvantages. At this time, Yishuan only knew that these wild beasts had lived through the era of the kings. It was because the kings of the various races had agreed to guard their own land and not come out to cause trouble. That was why they were allowed to survive in the ancient wilderness. Yishuan's thoughts were completely different from before. Now he could somewhat understand what the kings were thinking. They did not care about these wild beasts at all. As long as he was here, he would kill whoever dared to cause trouble. He did not want to anger the heavens and the people. Speaking of which, they were the true natives of the ancient wilderness. They were older than the 100 Races Alliance and the Demon Race. However, although he did not want to argue with them, it did not mean that Yishuan could let go of the forbidden areas that had taken advantage of the situation. He gathered all the powerful beings in the forbidden areas who had come to pay their respects. Then he found all the wild beasts that had caused trouble in the forbidden areas and killed them one by one in front of everyone. There were a few legends and many profound realm experts. In one breath, he had flattened more than 20 forbidden areas, big and small. These wild beasts wanted to resist, but in front of Yishuan, they were like children. They could not do anything. Their resistance made them look even more ridiculous. The other desolate beasts trembled. Their mountain-like bodies prostrated themselves in front of Yishuan. They did not even dare to breathe loudly. How could these old monsters that had lived for countless years not know that Yishuan was killing the chicken to warn the monkeys? He was killing the chicken to warn the monkeys. At the same time, they breathed a sigh of relief. Yishuan was willing to kill the chicken to warn the monkeys, which meant that he had no intention of killing all of them. This was the best result. As the saying goes, it is better to let others die than to let others die. Back then, they had strictly abided by the agreement with the kings of the human race and did not take action. Now that they had escaped from this disaster, they could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. They would not dare to do it again in the future. Who would have thought that the human race would actually produce such a person in such a decline? One person could prosper a city, and one person could destroy a country. Yishuan was a person with such ability. It seemed that it was not without reason that the human race could become one of the few great races in the universe. Even in a place far away from the center, such a person could be produced. They had also paid attention to that battle, so they knew that it did not matter whether Yishuan was a god or not. Even if he was not a god, he would still be a god if he could defeat a god. Moreover, it seemed that Tao validation was just around the corner. They were going to witness the rise of another king. They guessed right. Yishuan was indeed killing the chicken to warn the monkeys. Unless he intended to kill all of these people, it was imperative. He did not want to go to the extreme. He was decisive in his actions. He would never hesitate to kill those who deserved to be killed. However, he was not a crazy person who wanted to kill the whole world. However, he did not want to let go of these forbidden areas that had committed crimes when the human race was in trouble. Since there was an agreement, they would have to pay the price if they did not abide by it. After dealing with the wild beasts in these forbidden areas, the rest were the representatives of the various races. They did not dare to neglect the worship of Yishuan. Although they were representatives, they were by far the strongest experts of each race. Everyone who was ranked high in the race had come. Whether it was due to the pressure of reality or the curiosity in their hearts, it was imperative to worship the god at that time. At the same time, they were also a little nervous. They did not know how Yi Shiwen would deal with the relationship between the human race and the other races. After learning that Yi Shiwen had won, the experts of the various races basically fled back to their own races. They did not dare to take back the human land that they had originally occupied. What a joke! If Yi Shiwen was dissatisfied, he could kill them on the spot. In this regard, Yi Shiwen did not go to the extreme. He only asked each of the three races to hand over 1/10 of the territory as compensation for the evil they had done over the years. The various races could not help but sigh in relief. Although it was painful, it was better than being exterminated by Yi Shiwen. In fact, Yi Shiwen did not care much about these territories. The ancient barrens was not worse than the Xian world. In fact, its foundation was even better. However, why was it difficult to produce legendary experts in the ancient barrens, but the Xian world had many legendary experts? In the past, the ancient barrens had been extremely glorious twice. Similarly, there were many races. This showed that the key problem was not the issue of these territories. In terms of inheritance, as long as enough inheritance was unearthed, and with the guidance of the seniors, coupled with the many experts that Yi Shiwen had left here, the revival of the human race was only a matter of time. As for the other races, he was not interested in them. The fact that he did not kill them all showed that his mentality had changed after his transformation. There were also many problems within the human race. The interests of the various clans and sects were coordinated and so on. Because of Yi Shiwen's existence, the Yi clan had naturally risen to become the fifth great royal clan. Moreover, with Yi Shiwen's power and influence, they had faintly become the first royal clan in the world. In this regard, Yi Shiwen had asked them to be as low-key as possible. Titles and so on were all fake. Only one's own strength was the foundation of a foothold. Of course, he had also left many exclusive martial arts and martial arts insights to the Yi clan. He was a member of the Yi clan, so it was reasonable for him to favor the Yi clan. In the past, his development could not have been done without the Yi clan's help. Now was the time to repay them. Chapter 22-32. The major forces tried their best to cultivate talents in the hope that they would be rewarded in the future. However, it was rare to see such an exaggerated rate of return like Yi Shiwen. At the level of Dao confirmation, it was not a matter of how much resources were invested. It was normal for all the rewards to go down the drain. Yi Shiwen did not have much time left. He could only leave his insights in the Yi family as much as possible to forge the foundation of the Yi family. He could not stay in ancient barrens like the other seniors, so he did not have that much time to slowly lay the foundation of the Yi family. He could only choose to keep moving forward. Before that, he had to make the Yi family as strong as possible. However, this had to be done slowly. It would still take a long time. There was not much time left for him. At most, he would return to deity transformation abyss in a month. However, he did not have that much time. He still had to deal with a lot of trivial matters in one go. He also had to find time to meet the higher-ups of the major clans. Therefore, he did not have much time to do things. A month passed quickly. There were many things that could not be done perfectly. This was something that could not be helped. He could only choose to return in the future to deal with it. After a month, Yi Shiwen had quietly left ancient barrens. Except for Yi Fan and a few others, no one knew that Yi Shiwen had left. However, it did not matter. In fact, most of the matters could be handled by the experts of the myths. There was no need to trouble Yi Shiwen at all. However, although Yi Shiwen hurried, he was still late when he returned to deity transformation abyss. He was more than 10 days late than the 3 months that Elder Kong said. He had not returned for a long time. He had to properly arrange things in ancient barrens, so he was still a bit late. When he returned, everyone had already left. If you came back any later, you would not be able to make it, Boss Su said with a straight face. Yi Shiwen smiled brightly. No matter what the reason was, he was still late in the end. You have made a lot of progress in these 3 months. Elder Kong looked at Yi Shiwen with some surprise. He did not know what kind of adventure Yi Shiwen had. In these 3 months, he could actually have such amazing progress. However, he still felt a little strange. What was it that made him return in such a hurry within 3 months? Is there something urgent? Yi Shiwen asked. Elder Kong nodded and said, "This is also a great fortune for you. This opportunity only appears once every 100,000 years, and it has fallen on your head. 100,000 years? Yi Shiwen was somewhat stunned. 100,000 years wasn't a short period of time. One must know that a human's lifespan would be no more than 10,000 years if they hadn't reached the Tao realm. Well, in fact, this can't be considered as an opportunity. It should be said that all the major forces have joined forces to create this opportunity. Before the Tool Emperor disappeared, he had left behind a treasure vault in the Tool Emperor Heaven. We can't enter the Tool Emperor Heaven, so we can only take advantage of the fact that there's no one presiding over the Tool Emperor Heaven every 100,000 years. So, we can only open a passage when the barrier of the Tool Emperor Heaven is weak. But even so, only those who haven't reached the Tao realm can enter. Yi Shiwen was startled. He remembered that a long time ago, Yimo had once imparted him the Celestial Emperor's tool refining technique. Yimo had refused to tell him anything at first. Later on, he had inadvertently mentioned that this Celestial Emperor's tool refining technique had originated from a Supreme Emperor, the Tool Emperor. Could be him? But at that time, he just listened to it and didn't take it too seriously. At that time, the Emperor level was too far away for him, who had just entered the Truth Realm. They were not on the same level at all. Seeing Yi Shiwen's expression, Elder Kong thought that Yi Shiwen didn't know. So he continued, among the known emperors, the Tool Emperor was the only one who obtained the Tao through tool refining. Even the other emperors have heard of the Tool Emperor's tool refining technique. Even the other emperors have heard of the Tool Emperor's tool refining technique. If any of the Tool Emperor's tool refining technique were to circulate, countless people would go crazy over it. However, the Tool Emperor disappeared many years ago, leaving only the Tool Emperor Heaven in the depths of the void. The Tool Emperor Heaven is the divine kingdom of the Tool Emperor. The entire Tool Emperor Heaven itself is forged from countless tools and heavenly treasures. In the depths of the Tool Emperor Heaven, there's a huge treasure vault. Every 100,000 years, it spits out many heavenly treasures, tools, and divine objects. These things will be integrated into the depths of the Tool Emperor Heaven, making it even more stable. Therefore, even if there's no one presiding over the Tool Emperor Heaven, there's no way for Tao realm experts to enter. Elder Kong narrowed his eyes as he looked at Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen nodded solemnly. This was indeed a great fortune, a great fortune. However, these are not the most important things. The most important thing is that the Tool Emperor Heaven has left behind the inheritance of the Tool Emperor. It's just that after all these years, no one has truly found the inheritance of the Tool Emperor. Many people think that it's nonsense, but we know that it's not nonsense. Your main purpose in entering the Tool Emperor Heaven is to find the inheritance of the Tool Emperor. If you have the opportunity to obtain the inheritance of the Tool Emperor, then the entire Tool Emperor Heaven will be yours. Your future achievements will be limitless. Do you understand? You only have one chance. You don't have the lifespan to wait until the next time the Tool Emperor Heaven opens. If you don't achieve Tao Realm, then you'll die. Elder Kong looked at Yi Shiwen and said with a piercing gaze, of course, if you obtain any divine objects or tools that you don't need, the deity transformation abyss will purchase them at a high price. We won't let you suffer a loss. And Yi Shiwen nodded. This wasn't a problem. In any case, he wasn't being forced. Whether he needed it or not was up to him. Besides us, will there be others who will enter the deity transformation abyss? Yi Shiwen asked. Of course. In addition to the deity transformation abyss, there are hundreds of other big and small forces who will send their most outstanding disciples. In the deity transformation abyss, only the top 10 are qualified to enter. The others will only be sending themselves to death. In the deity transformation abyss, there are not only countless treasured tools, but more importantly, the Tool Emperor has left behind countless mechanisms and arrays. Many of the Tool Emperor's subordinates are also in deep slumber. Even if it's a deity, they won't be able to walk safely in there. Although your strength is not bad, in fact, it's only equivalent to the early stage of the immortality realm. It's not enough for you to roam freely. Moreover, The elite seeds of the major forces are also eyeing you covetously. It's impossible for you to obtain the inheritance easily. The early stage of the immortality realm. Yi Shiwen wasn't unfamiliar with this. Although he hadn't proven his Tao, Yi Shiwen had browsed through the insights and personal letters of several great kings in the imperial court of the human race. It mentioned that after proving one's Tao, one would be seen as a deity by ordinary people. However, among the deities, there were also several stages. The immortality realm, the eternal realm, the sage realm, and the king realm. Each stage was further divided into the early stage, the middle stage, the late stage, and the peak stage. Above, that was the legendary emperor realm. It was not a stage that he could reach now. The four human kings of the human race were the powerhouses among the king realm. The immortality realm was the first stage of proving one's Tao. It could be described as having no disasters and living forever with the world. It meant that as long as they didn't suffer from serious injuries or irresistible natural disasters, the masters of this realm could live forever and never die. However, if they suffered a serious injury, they could still die. Most of the deities that were known to have fallen were at the level of the immortality realm. The eternal realm was a step further. Even if there was only one cell left, they could be reborn. Immortality was no longer a characteristic. Eternal immortality was their strongest reliance. Therefore, when one cultivated to the eternal realm, it was basically very difficult to kill them. The sage realm had undergone earth-shattering changes. They were more powerful and harder to kill. The king realm powerhouses were the kings of the gods. They were existences at the god-king level. An existence of such a level was enough to shock the world. This was especially so during the era of the rise of the kings. There were not many Tao validation powerhouses in the human race. There were only 4 of them. The other clans had produced many powerhouses. However, in front of the 4 human kings, even a dragon would have to coil up and a tiger would have to lie down. This was the reason. One of them was comparable to a dozen or even dozens of deities. However, that was still too far away for him. After proving one's Tao, every step forward would be much more difficult than before. The time needed was usually calculated in units of thousands or even tens of thousands of years. However, it didn't matter if the deities were immortal. It would just take a longer time. Right now, Yi Shiwen was only at the peak of the early eternal realm. He was confident that he didn't need to be afraid of anyone in this realm. Even if the Abyssal Demon Master and the Divine Union leader joined forces, they would still be defeated by him. They wouldn't be a threat to him at all. This time, you'll be in great danger when you go to the Weapon Emperor Heaven. Don't think that you're already invincible. In fact, there are top-notch existences among the major forces who can compete with Tao validation before they reach the Weapon Emperor Heaven. Moreover, the Weapon Emperor Heaven only opens once every 100,000 years. The major forces nurture their elites at all costs. Our Transformation Abyss is no exception. Do you know how much we paid to open the Divine Transformation Tower for you for a year? Originally, the best candidate wasn't you. The Lord of Flames chose you. However, it seems that you didn't disappoint him. You're indeed a good candidate. Elder Kong said, apart from the elites of the major forces, many old monsters who have lived for countless years will also take this opportunity to go. There are many who have lived for tens of thousands of years. Some of them also have special encounters that allow them to compete with the deities. You must remember not to take it lightly. Chapter 22:33. Yi Shiwen nodded solemnly. Of course, he wasn't that arrogant. He only felt that he was the only one in the world who could reach this level. In fact, the lifespan of humans was too short. But compared to humans, many long-lived races had innate advantages. Some powerful fortuitous encounters could make their actual combat power far beyond the ordinary realm. Perhaps they were extraordinary geniuses in the past, but they were trapped in this realm for countless years. Tao proving was something that couldn't be explained with words. It didn't mean that the more powerful one was in the early stages, the more one would be able to prove one's Tao. Some people advanced by leaps and bounds in the early stages, and then there was no then. Some people might spend 100,000 years to reach the peak of the mythical realm, but in the end, they could prove their Tao. Fate was something that was hard to say, but he wouldn't belittle himself. With his current cultivation, he had the strength to prove his Tao. Naturally, ordinary people couldn't compare to him, not being arrogant or belittling oneself. This was true confidence. But compared to this, you'd better refine the energy in your body as soon as possible. Otherwise, you'll be harmed. Elder Kong glanced at Yi Shiwen and saw the huge energy sealed in Yi Shiwen's body. Yi Shiwen couldn't help but smile bitterly and said, "I wanted to refine it, but didn't I rush back?" Of course, he was just saying it. This was a once-in-100,000 years opportunity. It was indeed a great fortune. But even though you don't have the time now, you will have it in the future. The Tool Emperor Heaven will be open for a total of 10 years. With our ability, we can only maintain it for about 10 years. After that, the passage will close. If you don't come out before that, you'll be trapped inside. Do you understand? Elder Kong said, "I don't want to see you again after 100,000 years." But from his words, he was very confident about Yi Shiwen's Tao proving. For others, it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. For him, it was just a threshold that needed to be crossed. "I understand." Yi Shiwen nodded. 10 years, only 10 years. But could it be that the previous seniors didn't leave behind any notes, maps, or the like? Regarding the weapon's sovereign heaven, he was completely clueless and instead felt somewhat depressed. 100,000 years have passed. Do you still hope for the weapon Emperor Heaven to remain the same? Even if you have a map and diary, they have long since lost their value as a reference. If you rely on such things, it will instead be easy for you to encounter trouble in the future. That is because there are innumerable and unimaginably dangerous existences in Weapon Emperor Heaven. However, if you are a bit more careful and don't rely on maps and diary, you will instead be able to go further. "Do you understand?" said Elder Gu. Yi Shiwen thought about it and no longer entangled himself in this issue. Ancient Weapon City was an incomparably ancient city, situated at the edge of the Weapon Emperor Heaven in the depths of the void. As an ancient city with countless years of history, the walls of Ancient Weapon City were marked with the marks of time, allowing one to easily see the history of this ancient city. Back when the Weapon Emperor was still around and the Weapon Emperor Heaven was not sealed, there were many ancient cities like this around the Weapon Emperor Heaven. However, as time passed, some of them were reduced to gravel in the river of time, and some were destroyed in the flames of war. Only Ancient Weapon City was left. This large city could accommodate tens of millions of people. Now, including the permanent residents, there were only less than 1 million, and most of them were people who came to make a fortune. This was once the periphery of the incomparably glorious Weapon Emperor Heaven, and there were many lost magic tools and cultivation techniques that could make people rich overnight. Although it was not as good as before, from time to time, there were still rumors of people accidentally obtaining ancient magic tools and becoming rich overnight. Because of this, many people were attracted to settle down. However, this city floating in the void of the universe was ultimately not suitable for ordinary people to live in. Therefore, those who could live in it were all extraordinary existences. Especially when the Weapon Emperor Heaven opened once every 100,000 years. It was a boiling cauldron of voices. Countless experts came, adding to the prosperity of the city. The last time the Weapon Emperor Heaven had opened was 100,000 years ago. It was so long ago that most of the residents only knew about this grand occasion from legends. Countless experts flooded in, making the entire ancient weapon city even harder to manage. These unruly geniuses and old monsters constantly clashed with each other. There were also many conflicts between them and the natives. However, it could still be considered as an exceptionally grand occasion. Yi Shiwen walked in the ancient weapon city, and the sounds of hawking could be heard all around. Everywhere he went, he could see profound realm experts, and even myth experts could be seen shuttling back and forth. Here, there was no longer a high and mighty status, and there was not much difference between them and ordinary experts. He had concealed his aura, and looked like an ordinary 7th-level Pawang realm expert, that's all. In this place, it was all too common. This time, Those who came to try their luck were far from just those peak myth experts. In fact, there were many experts who had passed the 7th level of Powong Realm, and even some peerless geniuses who had yet to reach the 7th level of Powong Realm. Once every 100,000 years was a rare opportunity, and there would not be a next time. If they didn't come this time, they would not have the chance to wait for the next time. Yi Shiwen looked around, and there were also many strange beasts that he couldn't name. All of them had extraordinary bloodlines, and every one of them was extraordinary. It should be said that Yi Shiwen, as a human, was an anomaly. He walked all the way to the city, and his speed wasn't slow. But since he had already reached Ancient Weapon City, it didn't matter whether he was in a hurry or not. Even with his current speed, it took him 10 days and 10 nights. One could imagine how remote this Ancient Weapon City was. If not for the coordinates provided by Elder Kong, he would not have been able to find it. Suddenly, there was a commotion in front of him. Many people were gathered in a circle, and Yi Shiwen squeezed into it. In the middle of the road, there was an incomparably huge carriage. It was extremely luxurious, and it was paved with countless jade, stones, and jewels. It shone with boundless divine light, and it looked incomparably luxurious. What was even more shocking was that there were 3 ferocious beasts pulling the carriage. One of them was a golden divine hoe. Divine hoe were ancient strange beasts, and they were famous among strange beasts. They dared to eat dragons. And this golden divine hoe was an emperor among divine hoe, and its bloodline was incomparably noble. And this golden divine hoe was at the 9th level of Legend Realm. It was extraordinary, and it obviously had an extraordinary origin. But now, this divine hoe was being used to pull a carriage. Who was the owner of this carriage? Extravagance was indescribable. And next to this divine hoe was an old man from the human race. He wore a conical bamboo hat and was dressed as a coachman. His hands were crossed, and his aura was profound. He was also an unfathomable myth expert, and unexpectedly, he was also a peak expert at the 9th level of Powong Realm. And now, he had become a coachman. There were no other guards, but it was already sufficient. 2 peak experts at the 9th level of Legend Realm were pulling the carriage. This already showed how extraordinary they were. And in front of them, there was a pair of mother and daughter. Both mother and daughter had cultivation bases. The mother had delicate features, and her cultivation base was already at the profound death realm. As for the daughter, she looked to be around 10 years old, and her cultivation base was slightly weaker. It seemed like she had just reached the longevity realm not too long ago. Most importantly, this pair of mother and daughter was a pair of humans. Yi Shiwen had been in the city for a period of time, and he had seen many experts from the various races. On the contrary, he rarely saw humans. "Lord, I beg you, please spare my daughter, little Ke. She definitely didn't mean to offend your carriage." That mother kowtowed unceasingly. Profound death realm cultivation base was sufficient for her to be a tyrant in some minor worlds. But at this moment, she could only kowtow and beg for forgiveness. As for that daughter, she was so frightened that her entire body was trembling. In front of 2 peak Legend Realm experts, she didn't even dare to breathe loudly. If it wasn't for her longevity realm cultivation base supporting her, she would have been scared to death. Impossible. You are lucky today that my young master isn't here. Otherwise, you would have to die as well. Quickly hand over your daughter, and I will spare you. The human old man spoke emotionlessly. He didn't feel any sympathy just because the person in front of him was from the same race. "Lord, I beg you, Lord." The people in the surroundings were also discussing fervently. How many unlucky bastards have there been today? He, who asked this human woman to be so stupid. She actually dared to touch his carriage. He was still worrying about not being able to find a reason to find trouble with her. This time, this little girl won't be able to escape. Isn't that so? I heard that Ao Shiba didn't gain much advantage from Qin Lai, and his heart is burning with anger. Whoever of the human race that offended him would be captured by him to vent his anger. It doesn't matter. In any case, the human race is like this. There are absolute experts, and there are also weak ants. It's very normal for hundreds or thousands of them to die. Ao Sheba. After such a long time, Yishuan had a different feeling when he heard this name again. He was a peerless genius from the Dragon Island. After Yi Shiwen entered the Xian world, he didn't see Ao Sheba. It seemed that the Xian world was just a place for him to temper himself. He had long forgotten about it. He didn't expect to encounter Ao Sheba again. Moreover, it was his family's carriage. Given Ao Sheba's domineering personality, this was indeed something he would do. The Golden Divine Host specialized in feeding on the dragon race, and Ao Sheba specially captured a Golden Divine Ho. His purpose was very obvious. It was to humiliate the Divine Ho race. This was the same logic as how human experts like to capture dragons to transport themselves. I don't want to talk nonsense with her. Since she wants to die, then it's perfect. I'll swallow her in one gulp. The Divine Ho roared and spoke in the human language. Up to you. The human old man crossed his arms and stood there expressionlessly. He didn't care at all. Fellow Taoist, please wait. Chapter 2234. My friend, please wait. At this time a figure jumped out. It was a man dressed like a scholar. He looked like an elegant Confucian scholar. What do you want? Shen Ho glared coldly at the scholar. Do you want to be a busybody so that I can eat you too? The old man from the human race looked at the scholar coldly. The scholar cupped his hands and said, Fellow Taoists, although this child was rash, it was an unintentional mistake. Moreover, he only slightly touched your carriage from beginning to end. Is this a crime deserving of death? If you want to be a busybody, look at yourself first. Are all humans so nosy? Shen Ho grinned, looking extremely ferocious. His body was shaking, but the chariot didn't move at all, as if there was some kind of device that was removing the force from his body. If you're right, you can walk to the ends of the world. If you're unreasonable, you can't do anything. I believe that there's still a limit to this world. The scholar's expression changed slightly in the face of Shen Ho's power. However, he still said stubbornly, My friend, you're also a human. Can you bear to see your fellow human get eaten just like that? He turned to the old man from the human race, hoping to gain his support. The people around him could not help but sigh. How could they not understand that he must have become stupid from reading so much? It was obvious that this group of people was here to cause trouble for the human race. Given their arrogance, would they listen to him? My friend, this child doesn't know any better. Please let him go. Some people are born this way. I see that you're also a human, and it's not easy for you to cultivate to the 8th heaven of the Paong realm. It's not too late for you to back out now. Not only did the old man not speak up for him, but he also tried to persuade him. Roar! Shen Ho roared, shaking the heavens and the earth. Why are you wasting your breath on him? If this fellow from the human race dares to be a busybody, I'll eat him too. Obviously, he was running out of patience. Since you want to die, I don't care, said the human driver coldly. The man and the beast were incomparably powerful, but no one dared to step forward to help them. This was all too normal. During this period of time, this was not the first time this had happened in the city. It was just that this time, it was the turn of the human race. Compared to exotic beasts with noble bloodlines, ordinary humans were truly nothing to be concerned about. The scholar's expression became serious. He cultivated the Confucian Tao, and he believed in the truth in his heart. With the truth in his body, he wouldn't need to fear anything in the world. This was the philosophy of the Confucian sect. At this moment, his entire body was filled with a righteous aura, and he was no longer affected by the aura of the gods. It wasn't that he hadn't seen Confucian experts before, but it was rare to see someone with such a profound cultivation. Although this scholar was a little pedantic, it had to be said that he was indeed righteous and had the essence of a scholar who did not fear power. He wouldn't be a true scholar if he was afraid of trouble and only knew how to protect himself. Boy, you want to talk about justice with me? I'll tell you now that my words are justice. The god roared and said with a sinister smile, Hurry up, we don't want to implicate you. The mother quickly said to the scholar. She could see that the cultivation of the scholar wasn't shallow, but there was still a huge gap between him and the man and the beast. Her heart was already dead, and she didn't want to drag anyone into this. Draw your sword to help when you see injustice on the road. Even a peddler and a pawn understand this truth. How can I stand by and watch someone die? Confucius died for a noble cause, and Mencius died for righteousness. Why should I be afraid? The scholar clenched his teeth and said, Good, very good. Confucius died for a noble cause, and Mencius died for righteousness. You are willing to sacrifice yourself for righteousness. Brother, you should be grateful. Yi Shiwen laughed and stepped into the field. The scholar was also a little surprised that someone dared to help him at this time. He couldn't help but feel happy on his face. As the saying goes, a just cause enjoys abundant support, while an unjust cause finds little support. This proved that what he had done was right. May I know your name, brother? Yi Shiwen asked. I'm Meng Haoran, the scholar said. Yi Shiwen's complexion was a little strange. He seemed to have thought of an extremely famous poet. What's wrong? Is there something wrong with my name? Meng Haoran also saw Yi Shiwen's strange expression and couldn't help but ask. Nothing. It's just that it has the same name as someone I know. I haven't introduced you yet. Yi Shiwen hadn't finished speaking when the god's roar came out. Another one has come to die. There are so many people in the human race who like to meddle in other people's business. It's just right. I'll swallow them all. Brother, this golden god is very ferocious. You don't have to use it, the scholar said with a wry smile. His realm was a level higher than Yi Shiwen's. How could he not see Yi Shiwen's cultivation? He couldn't help but smile bitterly in his heart. Don't worry. It's just an animal in human skin. What's there to be afraid of? Yi Shiwen glanced at the man and the god and couldn't help but sneer, especially when he saw the old man of the human race. A trace of ridicule flashed at the corner of his mouth. A dignified human powerhouse had actually become a slave with someone else. In his opinion, it was simply unimaginable. Although he had lived in the desolate era's true martial domain for many years, his concept had already been formed on that blue planet. On that planet, the human race was the superior of all living things. It had always been humans who bullied other living things. When had it been reversed? To some extent, he was a human race supremacist. The old man suddenly erupted with a strong aura. He couldn't keep his face anymore. Yi Shiwen's words were so obvious. He wasn't pointing at the mulberry tree, but cursing the locust tree. An earth-shattering aura rushed over, and the surrounding space froze. Many people's expressions changed. The aura that erupted from an expert at the peak of the myth realm was enough to make many people retreat. Many people looked at Yi Shiwen and the scholar with pitiful eyes. The cultivation of the two wasn't weak. However, there was obviously a gap between the man and the god. Although they had good intentions, they would probably end up in a miserable state in the end. Even the scholar was slightly affected, and the mother and daughter were shivering. It was as if the heavens were collapsing and the earth was collapsing. A terrifying pressure came crashing down on them. Yi Shiwen acted as if nothing had happened. He patted the scholar's shoulder and said, Although it's said that reason is the most important in the world, I only believe in one sentence. Reason is only within the scope of the fist. Since these two animals don't understand human language, then don't say anything more. Good lad, you have a sharp tongue. I want to see if your body is as hard as you say. The god let out an incomparably loud roar. His 3-meter-tall body suddenly leaped out. It was unknown when the carriage that was pressing down on him had broken away. It was as fast as a golden lightning. In an instant, it seemed as if the entire world was under its control. A monstrous and incomparable power, an imposing aura shrouded Yi Shiwen. This was a kind of biological, instinctive coercion. The gods could feed on the dragon race, so one could well imagine how tyrannical they were. In fact, it was hard to tell how much more tyrannical their bloodline was compared to that of ordinary humans. Yi Shiwen immediately felt this terrifying power. Next to him, the scholar's righteous aura was stirred, and he reacted almost immediately. At some point, a long sword appeared in his hand, carrying a righteous aura. It was the Confucian scholar's gentleman's sword. Yi Shiwen was a little surprised. The god's speed was unimaginably fast. However, the scholar was able to react in time. It seemed that he wasn't an ordinary person. The Confucian school's special cultivation method wasn't without reason. This god's speed was extremely fast. It even distorted ordinary people's perception of time and space. The people around didn't see how the god made his move. However, at this critical moment, Yi Shiwen made his move. He was even faster than the scholar. He directly slapped the god. The god's bloody mouth was directly slapped by Yi Shiwen on the spot. Motherf asterisk Kerr. Who asked you to be so pretentious? Along with this sound, the god's figure flew backward at a speed countless times faster than before. Boom! It directly destroyed a large number of residences. Finally, it stopped. This power was enough to shatter a star. However, this place was reinforced by a formation. It wasn't an ordinary place. What was going on? Are my eyes playing tricks on me? Why is it that god that flew out? What the hell just happened? Why didn't I see it clearly at all? Everyone was completely shocked. They couldn't believe it. The scholar also looked at Yi Shiwen in shock. Just a moment ago, he was planning to make a move and stop this golden god from causing trouble. Who would have thought that in the next second, the situation would be reversed? The aggressive god couldn't even withstand Yi Shiwen's attack. It was directly slapped away. This was a golden god at the peak of the mythical stage. In terms of bloodline, it wasn't inferior to anyone. It could almost be called a superior among those of the same level. In the end, it was still beaten like a dog. Who was he? Idiot. You dare to be pretentious with this kind of strength. Yi Shiwen couldn't help but scold. He couldn't even withstand one of his attacks. He was completely useless. He didn't think about it. With his current terrifying palm strength, which ordinary peak of the mythical stage could withstand one of his attacks? Yi Shiwen's gaze turned to the human coachman. Where's your pride as a human expert? Was it eaten by a dog? Are you only left with this kind of ability to bully the weak? Your cultivation isn't bad. It's a pity that you chose to help the evildoer. Since you're also a human, destroy your own cultivation. I'll spare your life. Chapter 22:35. The old man was shocked and angry at the same time. He had never expected that Yi Shiwen would be so terrifying. Moreover, Yi Shiwen had asked him to cripple his own cultivation. For a powerful warrior, crippling his own cultivation was more cruel than killing him. If it was before, he would have thought that this junior of the human race had gone crazy. However, the attack just now made him understand that this was not a dream. It was reality. The strength of the divine Ho was almost the same as his. However, the divine Ho's body had been smashed into pieces by Yi Shiwen's slap. How terrifying was the power of this palm? He simply couldn't imagine what would happen if he was slapped by it. Yi Shiwen didn't care about the old man. He then trotted to the side of the divine Ho that he had slapped to death. A satisfied look appeared on his face. Fortunately, I didn't use my full strength. Otherwise, this meat would have been smashed into blood mist. Speaking of which, I haven't eaten divine Ho's meat yet. He had already stored the meat of the divine Ho that he had slapped to death in a Tianyuan mirror. He usually refined the meat along with the blood. Therefore, he didn't have much need for food. The people around him were scared to the point of wetting their pants. That was a divine Ho, a golden divine Ho at the peak of the myth realm. If it hadn't been captured by Ao Shiba to pull the carriage, it would have been one of the strongest geniuses in the world. It wouldn't have lost to anyone. However, it had been slapped to death by this person. How terrifying was this person's realm? Moreover, he hadn't used his full strength. If he had used his full strength, wouldn't he have blasted a big hole in the ancient tool city? Their brains quickly turned as they searched for the information of many geniuses of the human race that they had heard about. His combat strength was really tyrannical and terrifying. There was no reason that they hadn't heard of such a terrifying person before. They searched for countless information in their minds. Finally, they found the information of that scholar, Meng Haoran, one of the outstanding disciples of the mysterious Confucian sect. His cultivation wasn't the most eye-catching. However, he had once slaughtered 2 existences at the peak of the myth realm. Moreover, the 2 existences had joined forces. Although there were countless geniuses in this world, there were only a few people at their level. Their circle was very small. They felt that as long as Yi Shiwen announced his name, they would naturally understand. Brat, don't go overboard. Do you know who our master is? The human expert gritted his teeth and cautiously said. He didn't dare to act recklessly. He knew that he wouldn't be able to withstand a single move from Yi Shiwen. However, he couldn't tolerate the fact that he had to cripple his own martial arts. Isn't it A.O. Shiba? Even if he's right in front of me, I'll still kill him. What's the big deal? Don't think too highly of yourself. Isn't it just a dragon? If you really piss me off, so what if I slaughter you and make a pot of soup out of you? Yi Shiwen walked all the way and said indifferently, do you think he will get the news and rush over now? Don't be naive. I've already sealed off the surrounding space. Unless I'm willing, he won't be able to get the slightest bit of information. Cripple your own martial arts. I don't want to repeat myself a third time. Yi Shiwen shot a cold look at this old man. He didn't have the slightest bit of sympathy for him. Don't go too far. The old man roared. Bang! Before he finished speaking, his entire body flew up like a cannonball and then directly crashed into the house with a bang. He was kicked away by Yi Shiwen. Go too far. Well said. When you were being arrogant just now, did you ever think of the words go too far? That coward A.O. Shiba lost to Qin Lai and couldn't get back at him. So he actually wanted to get back at ordinary people. As a human, you actually helped a tyrant. Crippling your cultivation is already letting you off easy. Don't think that you can bully others just because you have A.O. Shiba's support. Not everyone will give him face. Yi Shiwen said faintly. Everyone was horrified. Only then did they realize that the old man's cultivation had actually been crippled by Yi Shiwen. His entire face was extremely pale. With just one move, a master at the peak of the myth realm had his martial arts crippled, and this was Yi Shiwen showing mercy. Otherwise, he would have been killed in one move. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Just who was this person? His strength was completely above that of a myth. My master will avenge me. The old man spat out a mouthful of blood and roared. Yi Shiwen looked at him with contempt and said, even if he doesn't come, I will still go find him. He is in a bad mood and wants to eat people for fun. Now that I am in a bad mood, I also want to eat a dragon for fun. The old man suddenly spat out a mouthful of old blood. This was completely different from the script that he had originally imagined. Not only was Yi Shiwen not afraid at all, but he was also going to look for trouble. Yi Shiwen walked to the side of the mother and daughter and said, hurry up and find a place to hide. This place is not suitable for you. Yi Shiwen glanced at them and shook his head. In this place, with their cultivation, they were still too weak. Brother, are you going to find A.O. Shiba? I will go with you. Meng Haoran stepped forward and said, it's just that I haven't asked for your name yet. It's me, Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen grinned and said. His figure had already disappeared into the street. What? He is Yi Shiwen. The old man's eyes were red as he stared at the place where Yi Shiwen disappeared. He couldn't believe it. He had been with A.O. Shiba for a long time. After returning from the ancient Phoenix domain last time, among the people that A.O. Shiba could not forget, except for Qin Lai, Yi Shiwen was the only one left. It was just that he had never seen Yi Shiwen before, and he did not know what Yi Shiwen looked like. Otherwise, it would be more than this. How could he be so strong? He had never imagined that the enemy that the young master could not forget would actually become so tyrannical. He is Yi Shiwen. No wonder, no wonder. He is from the deification abyss. This year, he suddenly rose to become the strongest in the 3rd district of the deification abyss. Deification abyss, I remember now. This time, someone said that the so-called geniuses from the deification abyss are useless. It seems that it is not that there is no one in the deification abyss, but the real leader has not arrived yet. Damn, the difference in strength is too big. I always thought that they were all in the top 10, and their strength should be similar. But this Yi Shiwen's strength, could it be that he can already compete with Dao Confirmation? Another fierce dragon crossing the river. Not counting those old monsters of the older generation, this time among the elite seeds selected by the major forces, I am afraid that the situation will change again. When did such a person appear in the human clan? Many people suddenly burst into an uproar. In fact, many people knew about Yi Shiwen's matter. In other words, As long as the top and most outstanding figures of the major forces appeared, the news would soon be known by others. It was also because Yi Shiwen had only been famous for a short time. Otherwise, his background might have been dug out by others. But at this time, Yi Shiwen naturally did not care about what people thought. The matter had already been done, and it did not matter anymore. Brother Yi, you are righteous. I admire you. Meng Haoran followed Yi Shiwen and said, Can I take it that you are praising yourself? Ha ha! Yi Shiwen laughed and looked at Meng Haoran's darkened face. He could not help but feel that it was very interesting. Those two people are not my opponents. For me, it is just a little effort. But you are a member of the Confucian sect. Do you think that I am harming the heavens? Of course not. Those people are people who read books and have become stupid. I will not do that. Meng Haoran shook his head and said, Ha ha, well said. Yi Shiwen laughed. Originally, he was afraid that Meng Haoran was also the kind of person who read books and became stupid. He would not let go of the righteousness. I'm going to find trouble with Ao Shiba now. Are you really going to go with me? Yes, Dragon Island's Ao Shiba. I've also heard of your name for a long time. It is a pity that I have not had the opportunity to fight with you. Meng Haoran said firmly. It was a little different from the scholar's spirit that he showed before. At this moment, he looked a bit like a warrior. But Brother Yi, do you know where Ao Shiba is now? I have blocked the talisman that the old guy sent for help just now. I have already determined the direction. It is not difficult to calculate. Yi Shiwen said confidently. The two continued to move forward. Although the ancient tool city was not small, the two of them were extremely fast. As they moved forward, they soon arrived at a huge garden. The garden was surrounded by a group of people. Countless people were watching. Yi Shiwen's divine senses directly swept in. He saw a group of people in a corner of a huge open space in the garden in twos and threes. Yi Shiwen glanced around. None of these people were ordinary people. They were powerful, and the weakest among them was at the peak of the myth realm. There were even some people who had concealed their auras. Yi Shiwen's sixth sense even made him feel a faint threat. Moreover, some of them were people he was familiar with. One of them was Ao Shiba, whom Yi Shiwen had not seen for many years. Compared to the time when he was in the ancient Phoenix realm, he was many times more tyrannical. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back. His expression was leisurely and his temperament was threatening. He was one of the people who could make Yi Shiwen feel threatened. However, he looked a little impatient. Yi Shiwen did not know what was bothering him. The other person was unexpectedly the wolf cub, Yi Wudi, whom Yi Shiwen had not seen for a long time. Ever since he had followed Mu Lao to cultivate, they had rarely seen each other. Because of this, Yi Shiwen was surprised and delighted. Apart from them, there were also a few tyrannical auras. Although Yi Shiwen did not recognize them, he could feel that they were extremely terrifying. On the other side of the corner was the monkey and the others from the deification abyss. Chapter 2236. Other than the monkey, there was also the blue-eyed golden toad, the sword-carrying youth, the 10 absolute saints, and Huina. Yi Shiwen knew only 7 or 8 of them. Jun Dingtian was not here, and Yao Xingqing was nowhere to be seen. He had a faint guess in his heart that they were afraid of meeting him. This was not the Void Realm. It would be fine if they died, but if he killed them here, they would be dead for sure. Needless to say, he really did have such a thought. If he really had the chance, he wouldn't mind killing them to get rid of them. In the center of the field, a young man in a purple robe stood. He was taller than the average person, about 2 meters tall. A pair of wings were tucked behind his back. He had an arrogant look on his face, and his hands were golden in color, which made him look quite different. He was just standing there quietly, but he gave off a strong pressure that no one had ever felt before. Is there no one else? The young man glanced at the crowd. There was a hint of laziness in his arrogant expression. Obviously, he did not take them seriously. It seems that you were just SOSO. The purple-robed young man could not help but sneer. He did not say much and was about to turn around and return to his position. Suddenly, a young man jumped out. Tu Suling from the Spirit Slaughter sect. Please advise me. This was a figure even taller than the young man. He was about 3 meters tall, and his entire body was covered with lush hair. His hair emitted a blue light under the sunlight, like strands of ice crystals. He looked extremely extraordinary. Make your move. Otherwise, you may not have the chance later, the purple-robed young man said lightly. Tu Suling did not say much. He had seen the battle just now and did not dare to underestimate his opponent. Boom! The aura on his body instantly rose to the extreme. He did not dare to slack off. His entire body's power had been activated to the extreme, and he directly punched out. Whoosh! Wherever the fist pressure passed, the entire world was instantly frozen. It was the color of ice crystals, and in an instant, it was a field of ice. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes. This Tu Suling was very strong. He was almost as strong as Yi Shiwen, who had yet to break through to the Tao realm a year ago. With his combat power at that time, it was almost enough to defeat everyone in the 3rd district of Transforming God Abyss. Unexpectedly, he met another one here. There were many geniuses in the world. This was almost the peak that an ordinary demigod could achieve. It was impossible to achieve the battle prowess of breaking through to the doctrine level using ordinary methods. It was impossible to achieve it without great fortuitous encounters, great perseverance, or other methods. Right at this moment, a finger pierced through the heavens, piercing through the heavens. Boom! A loud explosion was heard, and the entire sky was completely shattered. Countless ice crystals instantly turned into ice shards that filled the sky, before disappearing into nothingness. The finger landed on Tu Suling's fist, and with a sickening shattering sound, Tu Suling's entire arm shattered into a bloody mist. Ah! Tu Suling was still screaming when a figure appeared in front of him. It was none other than the purple-robed youth. The Spirit Slaughter sect is only S. He kicked out like lightning, tearing through the heavens and shattering the heavens. His kick landed on Tu Suling's chest. Bang! Tu Suling was blasted away like a cannonball. His speed was extremely fast. Only a few people could see the series of actions, and Yi Shiwen was one of them. He was slightly surprised. Even with Tu Suling's strength, he was sent flying in an instant. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. It started like lightning and ended like lightning. Many people were still gasping in surprise. They did not even see what happened before Tu Suling was defeated. Everyone held their breaths and focused their attention. After a short moment of silence, they instantly cried out in surprise. Or rather, they had completely exploded. So strong. Tu Suling is already an invincible demigod, but he couldn't even take a single hit. The Shrouding Heaven sect is indeed a sect founded by a king powerhouse. It's unimaginable that Mo Zhengde has already defeated the outstanding disciples of 8 major forces before he even made a move. I can't believe it. So strong. Is his combat strength really comparable to that of a deity? It's indeed a famous sect in Untainted Land. It's indeed not something that can be compared to outside of Untainted Land. Countless people were shocked by Mo Zhengde's strength. Tu Suling was already considered extremely strong in the eyes of the crowd. But now, it seemed that other than showing off Mo Zhengde's strength, his strength was practically useless. Mo Zhengde's super shadowing finger is getting more and more powerful. After returning from special training, his combat strength has indeed made a breakthrough. He alone is enough to defeat all the so-called geniuses and elites from outside of Untainted Land. Those people think they're so great, but they're just frogs in a well. What a joke! A strange beast lying on the side of the field spoke with disdain. It was the size of an ox and looked like a tiger. It had the fur of a hedgehog and a pair of wings. It looked extremely ferocious. Many people paled at its words because they were all from outside of Untainted Land. They were the frogs in the well that the strange beast was referring to. They're simply too arrogant. They gone too far. Someone gnashed his teeth in anger. He was extremely depressed. Although they're arrogant, they do have the strength. I'm afraid we're no match for them. Don't you recognize that strange beast? It's the legendary Qi Qiong, a famous ferocious beast clan. If you provoke it, it even dares to devour a Tao confirming expert. How can we afford to provoke such a lawless clan? Although many people were indignant, they did not dare to step forward. Most of them came from many famous sects in the macro world. But in front of these people, they were really not enough. Tu Suling of the Spirit Slaughter sect could not even block a single move. He was just like an ant. These people are relying on their strength to be lawless. Meng Haoran could not help but say. His tone was also quite disapproving. Yi Shiwen was still thinking about things related to untainted land. He had not yet recovered from his thoughts when he saw Mo Jingda's gaze turn to the group from Deity Transformation Abyss. Deity Transformation Abyss, did none of you come out to teach them a lesson? Mo Jingda said lightly. Sure enough, it said that Shrouding Heaven's sect and Deity Transformation Abyss have been competing in many areas. Both sides are already like fire and water. This time, there are no outstanding geniuses from Deity Transformation Abyss. Will Mo Jingda let go of this opportunity to humiliate Deity Transformation Abyss? Definitely not. But this time, there are indeed no outstanding geniuses from Deity Transformation Abyss. At most, there is no difference between them and Tu Suling. However, the Spirit Slaughter sect is not as powerful as Deity Transformation Abyss. There's nothing we can do if we're being bullied. Everyone looked over. Sure enough, the group from Deity Transformation Abyss was already pale with anger. During this period of time, they had clearly been bullied many times. Among the masters who had come this time, there were hundreds of large and small forces. However, there were only a few regal sections. It was difficult for the group from Deity Transformation Abyss to not attract attention. Not to mention, the competition between the major regal sects was unavoidable. Now, Mo Jingda was singling out Deity Transformation Abyss for trouble. As for the other people who could stand side by side with Mo Jingda, they all stood with their arms crossed. They had no intention of getting involved. This was a conflict between two regal sects, and they did not want to get involved. You can be arrogant all you want. When he arrives, you'll be crying. Someone from Deity Transformation Abyss could not help but say. As soon as his voice fell, everyone from Deity Transformation Abyss suddenly became spirited. Yes, they might not be Mo Jingda's opponent, but it did not mean that there was no one in Deity Transformation Abyss. It was just that the real experts had not arrived yet. Not to mention him, even Jun Dingtian should not be inferior to Mo Jingda. What's there to be proud of? It's not that there are no experts in Deity Transformation Abyss. It's just that we haven't arrived yet. Someone said indignantly. The expert they're talking about. Is it Yi Shiwen who won this time? I heard that he's not bad and quite powerful, but even if he's here, I'm afraid he won't be able to solve the problem. I'm afraid that Mo Jingda is already able to fight against Dao validation. No matter how powerful Yi Shiwen is, can he be more powerful than Tu Suling? Sigh, there are fewer and fewer experts outside the ancient wilderness now. Most of the geniuses have been recruited by the major regal sects of the ancient wilderness. The rest have probably been recruited by Deity Transformation Abyss and the others, causing the ancient wilderness to become more and more powerful. It's not without reason that they look down on us. Nowadays, the ancient wilderness has long been called the wilderness by them. Although it's a derogatory term, it's not without reason. Oh, so you still have experts. Ha ha ha. That's ridiculous. But where are they? Mo Jingda laughed wildly. Trash will always be trash. Don't find excuses for yourself. There are also experts. Why don't you bring out the experts from the Deity Transformation Abyss? You can even bring out those old guys from the Hidden Valley. You've gone too far. I'm Sun Qingtian. Please advise me. Monkey finally couldn't stand it anymore. He had a very fiery temper, and he had never been bullied to this extent before. This was simply too much. Finally, there's someone with guts, Mo Jingda said with a sneer. He didn't put monkey in his eyes at all. After breaking through a limit in battle, it was a different world. It was not something they could imagine. Don't be impulsive. You're no match for him. Huyan Enu pulled monkey and couldn't help but advise him. He's already at our door. We have no other choice. Besides, I also want to experience the martial arts of the experts from Covering Heaven's sect. Monkey broke free from Huyan Eanu's hand and stepped forward. Chapter 22:37. The monkey was not a person who could swallow humiliation. Whether it was his background or bloodline, he was not inferior to others. How could he swallow humiliation? Good. You have guts. Mo Jingda sneered. Let me see what the divine abyss is capable of. Monkey looked at Mo Jingda and said, Take my stick first. With a loud roar, an iron rod swept out, instantly forming layers of curtains that directly smashed down towards Mo Jingda, exploding with countless divine lights. Finger hand breaks the sky. Mo Jingda pointed out a golden finger on the spot, shattering the sky, smashing everything along the way, directly blasting towards the iron rod. Clang! An incomparably loud explosion rang out. Monkey was forced back more than 10 steps before he finally came to a stop. Both his hands were trembling, and so was his entire iron rod. Mo Jingda was standing there motionlessly. Clearly, he was not affected at all. How is this possible? Sun Qingtian's rod is probably lacking a divine tool. Although it is lacking a divine tool, it is still a divine tool in essence. This Mo Jingda can actually resist it with his bare hands. Everyone was a little dumbfounded. It was a terrifying and shocking collision. You don't know this, do you? All of Shrouding Heaven's power is in their hands. In fact, their hands are divine weapons. They are not any weaker than divine weapons. That's right. You don't know. In the field, Mo Jingda sneered and looked at the monkey. There was a bit of disdain in his eyes. You have some skills a little stronger than that trash, just now. Whoosh! He suddenly stepped on the ground, and his whole body shook. In an instant, he had already appeared in front of the monkey. This was also an extremely powerful body technique, and it was extremely fast. At this moment, a golden light burst out from the monkey's eyes, as if he had seen through Mo Jingda's movements. His whole body suddenly kept retreating, and with a somersault, he directly flipped out, dodging Mo Jingda's attack, and then directly smashed an iron rod down on the spot. Bang! The iron rod was directly caught by Mo Jingda, and the shock wave turned into smithereens, shattering the space. This blow was extremely fast, and both sides were very fast. Yi Shiwen's eyes lit up. The monkey's progress this year was really great. It had completely caught up with him a year ago. However, it was still impossible for it to be compared with him now. It wasn't easy to have the fighting prowess of a Dao-confirming expert. It depended on luck most of the time. Yi Shiwen might have been stuck at this level for countless years if he didn't have luck. However, Mo Jingda was stronger. The monkey had already been forced to go all out, but Mo Jingda had yet to go all out. The battle was very intense, and both sides seemed to be in full swing. However, Yi Shiwen could see that Mo Jingda hadn't used his full strength yet. Bang! 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 Time and time again, the collisions shook the heavens and the earth, causing the earth to shake and the mountains to shake. The experts in the surroundings immediately set up barriers and joined hands to block the shockwaves. Otherwise, how could they block the terrifying shockwaves that could even shatter stars? Take another strike from me. Spherical heaven strike. The monkey let out a sharp roar, and countless divine rays swept out from the iron rod in his hand. The wind generated by the rod turned into a huge storm, and the laws were directly displayed. Under the influence of a mysterious force, the iron rod smashed down with a loud bang. In the face of this force, even time was shattered and destroyed. It became the theme of everything. Everyone was exclaiming. The monkey's strength was really amazing. When it was fully displayed, there weren't many people who could withstand it on the spot. However, Mo Jingda pointed with a finger. Finger breaks the heavens. It was still the same move. As the saying goes, a single move can dominate the world. He relied on this move to forcefully take down the monkey's rod. It wasn't the slightest bit inferior. This finger was so amazing. It directly pointed and broke through the layers of shadows of the monkey's rod. The divine ray storm that the monkey had swept out couldn't withstand a single blow in front of this finger. It was defeated as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. Bang! The monkey let out a blood-curdling scream. The flesh on his entire arm split open, and fresh blood splattered out. His entire body was sent flying, and his golden fur was dyed red with fresh blood. The blood was almost completely pure gold, which also symbolized his amazing cultivation. Do you know why I've tolerated you until now and given you a chance to perform? That's because I want to defeat you when you're at your most complacent. I want everyone to know that even if you unleash your full strength, you won't be able to withstand a single blow from me. You're just a big ant, Emojinda said coldly. At this time, everyone finally understood why Tu Suling couldn't withstand a single blow in front of Emojinda, and why the monkey could continuously display shocking attacks. It turned out that this was the real reason. Even if the monkey displayed a truly shocking attack, he was just trash that could be defeated with a single palm strike in front of Emojinda. What was the gap? This was the gap. Emojinda used the cruelest method to announce the gap between him and the monkey. The monkey struggled for a while, but at this time his internal organs were severely damaged, and there was no way for him to recover in a short time. He could only gnash his teeth and look at Emojinda, wishing he could tear him into pieces. Why? Don't the rest of you want to avenge him? Deification Abyss is nothing more than this, and so is the Regis sect. Emojinda glanced at the people in the deity transformation abyss, as if he was trying to goad them into action. The people of Deification Abyss suddenly gnashed their teeth, and their faces turned pale, but there was nothing they could do. Emojinda's strength was too strong. Even if they had gone through a year of special training and strengthening, they were still too far behind in front of Emojinda. It would be good if that person was here. If it was that person, he might have a way to deal with Emojinda. At this time, in their minds, there was only the figure of that amazing champion. At this time, only he might be able to turn the tide. By the way, I heard that all of you were defeated by that human named Yishuan. TSK. I'm not interested in defeating a group of defeated people. What about that Yishuan? Is he afraid and doesn't dare to come? Just in time to defeat him together. I want to let everyone see that Deification Abyss is nothing more than this. Emojinda sneered. Today, he was destined to continue humiliating Deification Abyss. It was to bully the existence of no amazing geniuses in this year's Deification Abyss. At the very least, there was no existence that could compete with the gods. Yishuan. Hearing this name, Ao Shiba's eyes suddenly flashed. This name left a deep impression on him. In his life, he had only suffered losses from two humans. One was Qinlai, and the other was Yishuan. Of course, he still did not know that of the two subordinates he recruited, one was dead and the other was crippled. And Yi Wudi's eyes suddenly lit up. His relationship with Yishuan was naturally needless to say. It could be said that after his rebirth, he had always been with Yishuan. Their relationship was like that of blood brothers. Seeing that Emojinda actually brought the topic to Yishuan, Yi Wudi frowned and directly stood out, saying, Emojinda, I don't care if you want to cause trouble for Deification Abyss, but you'd better not involve Yishuan. Emojinda was startled. He did not expect that Yi Wudi, who seemed to have nothing to do with Deification Abyss, would actually stand out. Yi Wudi, what do you mean? Do you want to go against my Shrouding Heaven sect for Deification Abyss? Emojinda said with a cold smile. Although he was afraid of Yi Wudi's strength, he was not afraid. Yi Wudi did not show any fear. He stepped forward and said, So what if I go against you? Besides, do you not understand human language? I mean, regardless of the grudge between you and Deification Abyss, it's best not to involve Yishuan. If you talk nonsense again, be careful that I beat you up so badly that even your mother can't recognize you. Do you think you could take care of him? Emojinda finally understood that the crux of the matter was Yishuan. Yishuan, Yi Wudi, was there any relationship between the two? This name made him think of many things, but he had no evidence. Chapter 2238. Yishuan sighed. He knew that Ao Shiba must have received the news, but he did not intend to hide it, so it did not matter. He walked directly through the crowd and came out. Ao Shiba, you got the news a little slower than I thought, Yishuan said faintly, as if he was not affected by Ao Shiba's previous words. Ao Shiba's face was ashen. He already knew that Yi Shiwen had killed one of his subordinates and crippled the other. This was simply a slap in the face. If he could not get back at Yi Shiwen, how could he stand in the world in the future? How dare you show up? Ao Shiba's eyes were cold, and he said this through gritted teeth. Are you Yi Shiwen? At this time, Emojinda also looked over. From the beginning, this person who had not appeared yet had become the focus of everything. Everyone in the deification abyss had been looking forward to the appearance of the so-called number one in the deification abyss, and Yi Wudi almost fought with him because of this. His eyes were extremely unfriendly, but what he thought was that Yi Shiwen did not even care about him. He walked to Yi Wudi's side, his eyes filled with joy. The two of them hadn't seen each other for a long time. They were basically in different places. If it wasn't for this opportunity, who knew when they would meet again? Is old Mu all right? Yi Shiwen asked. Back then, he also received benefits from old Mu. The sky-flipping seal was still one of his most powerful moves, and he had also received guidance from old Mu. That old guy is fine, you don't have to worry, Yi Wudi said carelessly, but his face was full of smiles. Yi Shiwen, be careful. That guy is not easy to deal with. The monkey limped over, his eyes full of fighting spirit, but also a little sad. He was almost completely defeated by Emojinda just now. He did not want to use words to cover up for himself. That was not something he would do. I'm talking to you. Did you hear me? Emojinda roared, and a terrible power was released from his hand, turning into a terrible divine light that swept out directly and fell towards Yi Shiwen. However, before this terrifying power could be released, it was grabbed by a large hand. Then, like a cloud of smoke, it was directly grabbed and crushed. Emojinda's eyes were filled with surprise and bewilderment. His offensive had been completely blocked by Yi Shiwen. Although he hadn't used his full strength, he was still in existence that ordinary experts at the peak of the myth realm couldn't compare with. Yi Shiwen glanced at Emojinda and said, Why are you in such a hurry? If you want to die, you have plenty of time. What? I want to die. Good, Emojinda said while gnashing his teeth. He had never been slapped in the face like this before. He has become stronger again. Blue-eyed golden toad clenched his fists. This year of special training had allowed his strength to progress by leaps and bounds, but compared to Yi Shiwen, he was still incomparable. In fact, the gap between the two was even wider. Everyone's eyes were fixed on Yi Shiwen, especially those who wanted to watch a good show. This time, they were even more excited, especially since Yi Shiwen had just casually displayed a strength far beyond that of an ordinary person. It seemed like there was going to be another fierce battle. Emojinda, do you want to die? Yi Wudi's eyes widened in anger. He had already warned Emojinda just now, but Emojinda still dared to make a move under his nose. Yi Shiwen, do you only know how to hide behind others? Emojinda didn't look at Yi Wudi, but at Yi Shiwen instead. His eyes were filled with incomparable provocation. I don't need you to do anything. Yi Shiwen pressed his hand on Yi Wudi's shoulder, pressing the irascible Yi Wudi down. He took a step forward and walked in front of Emojinda, saying, Since you want to die, I will fulfill your wish. Yi Shiwen, Ao Shiba roared, I will tear you apart with my own hands. You are no match for Qin Lai, and you will not be a match for me either. Yi Shiwen said disdainfully, I don't care who wants to go first, or both of you. Hurry up, don't waste time. Arrogant. Ao Shiba and Emojinda's faces turned green and white. They were completely infuriated by Yi Shiwen. He did not take them seriously at all, and he even wanted to fight one against two. I will go first. The two said at the same time, and then looked at each other. Their eyes were extremely unfriendly, and they might even fight on the spot. It's up to you. I will wait for you in the universe. Yi Shiwen directly turned into a ball of golden light and disappeared from the city, flying directly into the universe. Countless divine senses swept over. After a while, Emojinda flew out. Obviously, he had a tacit understanding with Ao Shiba. In this battle, he would attack first. Emojinda glanced at Yi Shiwen with an indifferent expression. He suddenly attacked with a finger. He did not hold back like he did with the monkey just now. Instead, he suddenly attacked. Boom! A majestic aura swept out in an instant. The finger directly broke the sky, and the broken crack spread towards Yi Shiwen. Finger breaking the sky. As soon as he attacked, the sky trembled. Yi Shiwen did not give in at all. He sneered and said, "Finger breaking the sky. I think you are only SOSO." He clenched his 5 fingers into a fist, and golden liquid instantly rushed out, forming an incomparably powerful fist energy, and blasted towards Mo Jingde. Rumble! The terrifying power surged, and the void of the universe instantly turned into nothingness, and the stars trembled. Thump, thump, thump. Mo Jingde kept retreating. A terrifying power was wreaking havoc on his body. His palm was as tyrannical as a divine tool. However, it didn't mean that his entire body was like that. Yi Shiwen was different. His entire body had already reached the Deshang realm. There wasn't a single part of his body that hadn't been cultivated to the extreme. As soon as the two sides exchanged blows, it was obvious who was stronger. Yi Shiwen did not give him any chance. He immediately stepped forward and pinched a seal in his hand. It turned into a huge divine seal and smashed towards Mo Jingde. Countless laws manifested, forming a chain, and wrapped around Yi Shiwen's hand. It looked incomparably gorgeous, and divine light burst out. Clang! A huge roar sounded, and the sky-flipping seal directly hit Mo Jingde's body. Bang! Mo Jingde's whole body was blasted out, and he crossed thousands of miles of the universe. As soon as he attacked, Mo Jingde was blasted out. Everyone was silent, and the whole scene looked extremely strange. It seemed that the extremely tyrannical Mo Jingde, who had defeated countless opponents, was not a match for Yi Shiwen at all. Mo Jingde roared, and his voice shook the entire universe. He looked abnormally embarrassed, and his face was ashen. Ever since his combat power had a breakthrough, he had never been so embarrassed. This time, he was forced into such an embarrassing situation by Yi Shiwen. It was unprecedented, and it was also an unimaginable humiliation. He regrouped and instantly attacked. His fingers seemed to have turned into the sharpest sword, and it pierced through the vast sky. At this time, he did not dare to underestimate Yi Shiwen anymore, and he had finished writing. He was very clear that this was a life and death enemy. If he could not defeat Yi Shiwen, he was afraid that there would be big trouble in the future. This finger was like a long dragon, and it smashed everything. The divine light that burst out was like a storm, and it directly attacked. "See how I break your finger breaking the sky?" Yi Shiwen roared, and his 5 fingers clenched into a fist and turned into a huge human world. 6 paths of reincarnation fist human Tao fist. The terrible fist momentum formed a vast and mighty torrent, like a long river, and ruthlessly blasted out. Bang! A terrible collision broke out in an instant, and a mushroom cloud lit up the entire universe. Even the experts in ancient Tool City could see this terrible mushroom cloud with their naked eyes. All the principles manifested in an instant, and then were annihilated. Thump, thump, thump. Mo Jingde's finger breaking the sky was completely broken by Yi Shiwen. His whole body kept retreating and retreated hundreds of miles. He kept trying to stabilize his body, but Yi Shiwen's power was too violent. His finger breaking the sky was already very powerful, but compared to Yi Shiwen, it was not enough at all. Again, Yi Shiwen roared, and his blood and chi surged, and his black hair fluttered. He took a step forward and turned into a group of golden light, and instantly rushed in front of Mo Jingde. A pair of wind and thunder wings appeared behind him and covered the sky. In the next moment, he had already rushed in front of Mo Jingde. Human Tao fist. His 5 fingers clenched into a fist, and a punch blasted out and directly turned into a huge human Tao world. Countless stars were overshadowed by this human Tao world. At this time, Mo Jingde did not have enough time to regain his footing and counterattacked on the spot. He raised his whole body's martial power and concentrated it on his finger and pointed out the most powerful finger in his life. Boom! A terrifying collision sound rang out, and the sparks that burst out set off a powerful energy storm. Everything in the surroundings was crushed and shattered, and then it swept out in all directions at an astonishing speed. Bang! Emo Jinda was directly blasted away, and a mouthful of blood spurted out. His complexion was extremely ugly and completely pale. He had been seriously injured by Yi Shiwen's attack. Although his combat power had soared, and his body had also improved to a considerable level, but he still could not withstand Yi Shiwen's continuous crazy attacks. He had yet to react, and Yi Shiwen's offensive had already arrived. One more move, and I will completely defeat you. Yi Shiwen's figure had not been seen, but his offensive had already arrived in the next moment. It was the sky-flipping seal, and it carried a terrifying momentum that could turn the world upside down. Boom! The sky-flipping seal directly blasted into Mo Jingda's body. Chapter 2239. A terrifying force erupted from his body. Despite Mo Jingda's physical strength, he was still blasted into a bloody mess when he was almost defenseless. His physical body was on the verge of collapsing. Swish! With a sharp piercing sound, Mo Jingda was like a cannonball, directly piercing through the sky, and then directly fell into Ancient Weapon City, smashing a huge pit in the city that had been reinforced by countless arrays. Everyone was silent, completely scared out of their wits. Such a battle was simply earth-shattering, but on the contrary, the process of the battle was very fast and short. It should be said that from the beginning to the end, Mo Jingda was completely suppressed by Yi Shiwen, unable to display his strength at all. He was completely beaten up by Yi Shiwen, completely not a match for Yi Shiwen. Mo Jingda had completely displayed his full strength, but he was still not a match for Yi Shiwen. How tyrannical was this? It was too terrifying. So strong. Some people finally reacted now, as if they had just walked out from the shock of what just happened. Earlier, Mo Jingda had easily defeated Tu Suling, Monkey, and the others. It was almost a complete victory, showing his overwhelming strength. However, in front of Yi Shiwen, it was almost a one-sided massacre. This was simply too dramatic. But they were very clear that Mo Jingda, who easily defeated Tu Suling, Monkey, and the others, was not a pushover. His combat strength was almost comparable to that of Dao Confirmation. If such strength was said to be weak, how could they accept it? There was only one possibility, and that was that Yi Shiwen was too strong. Fast, so fast. Monkey stared at Yi Shiwen. Previously, he could still fight with Yi Shiwen, but now it seemed that the gap between them was even bigger, and he was not even qualified to fight with Yi Shiwen. In his heart, the desire for Dao Confirmation was infinitely strong. Dao Confirmation in a demigod device was comparable to Dao Confirmation, but not everyone could do it. To a large extent, it was only possible if one was extremely lucky. In comparison, it was much easier to prove one's Dao. Once they confirmed their Dao, they would return to the starting line. Their current advantage would no longer be there. They would just be a little stronger than the ordinary orthodox Dao newcomers. At this moment, the monkey was not the only one who was shocked by this scene. The 10 absolute saints, Huyin Anu, the blue-eyed golden toad, and the others were all completely shocked. Especially Huyin Anu. When she first saw Yi Shiwen, she was able to force Yi Shiwen to go all out with just one punch, but she was still unable to withstand it. But now, she was afraid that she would not be able to withstand even one move from Yi Shiwen. The situation seemed to have completely reversed. Yi Wudi looked at Yi Shiwen with a burning gaze. He had been improving all these years, but Yi Shiwen's speed didn't seem to be slow either. So strong. This Yi Shiwen's strength is probably more powerful than ordinary Dao Confirmation, but he's not even at the peak of the myth realm. He's only at the 8th level of Paoang realm, and yet he has such strength. This is too abnormal. Many people reacted. The truly terrifying thing was not Yi Shiwen's strength. After all, he had already reached the Dao Confirmation level. Any more terrifying was nothing. What really made them feel suffocated was Yi Shiwen's realm. A mere 8th level of Paoang realm could already be comparable to Dao Confirmation. In this case, once he confirmed his Dao, wouldn't he be immediately invincible? That kind of situation was simply unimaginable. Yi Shiwen stood with his hands behind his back. For him, this was nothing. He had already killed 2 real gods, let alone comparable to gods. That was only comparable in terms of combat power. If he used his full strength now, even gods would be seriously injured. No matter how strong Ping Mo Jingde was, he could only be comparable to Dao confirmation. His physical body could not truly be comparable to a divine shell, so it was enough to seriously injure him. Yi Shiwen did not chase after him. There was no need at all. He stood in the universe like a golden god. Divinity kept gushing out from under his feet, like an ocean, sweeping in all directions, turning into a huge ocean of domain. In this domain, he was the real god. Ao Shiba, make your move. Now it's your turn. Yi Shiwen said faintly, but his voice had extraordinary penetrating power. It was transmitted to the distant ancient weapon city. Everyone was stunned. He had just finished fighting with an expert comparable to a god, and now he was going to challenge another expert who was not weak or even stronger. At this moment, many experts seemed to have just remembered that Yi Shiwen had said at the beginning that he could attack at will, or it did not matter if he attacked together. 1 against 2 was more than enough. Previously, many people thought that Yi Shiwen was too arrogant. Now it seemed that Yi Shiwen was not arrogant, but true. He indeed had such strength. Roar! A loud dragon roar came from ancient weapon city, and the whole universe was immersed in his dragon roar. The terrifying sound waves in the void, like a tsunami, swept towards Yi Shiwen. This was the first wave of attack he launched, and he wanted to blast Yi Shiwen to death. What a terrifying sound wave! In the distance, everyone was shocked. In this sound wave, there were countless talismans with law lines mixed in it. The rumbling thunder covered the sky and the earth, and it had the terrible power to shatter the stars. Boom! Yi Shiwen stretched out his big hand and grabbed and extinguished this terrifying sound wave. It seemed as if this sound wave was nothing in his hand and was directly extinguished by his hand. Swish! Just as Yi Shiwen broke through this terrifying sound wave, a huge dragon claw descended from the sky, bursting with a dazzling divine radiance, and directly clawed at Yi Shiwen. The terrifying power caused the sky to collapse under the power of this claw. Dragon Claw! It was Ao Shiba. Ao Shiba was the most distinguished genius of the Dragon Clan, the 5-clawed Golden Dragon Clan. When he attacked, the whole world wailed. At this critical moment, Yi Shiwen directly attacked. He clenched his 5 fingers into a fist and blasted out the human Dao fist. Boom! The void collapsed crazily, bursting with endless divine light, and the whole world suddenly turned red. After blocking this attack, Ao Shiba was also forced out of the void. Ao Shiba stood in the void, and around him, the dragon power was constantly emitted, faintly forming a golden dragon, occupying the universe, like a supreme existence in the universe. You have some skills to be able to block my dragon claw. No wonder you dare to speak so arrogantly. A terrifying murderous intention burst out of Ao Shiba's eyes. It was beyond his expectations that Yi Shiwen would force him to this extent. How could he not be angry with Yi Shiwen? It's enough to kill you, Yi Shiwen said lightly. Kill me? You think you could do it? Ao Shiba sneered and directly attacked. His dragon claw clawed directly, causing the world to tremble violently. Although both of them were not deities, such terrifying power was comparable to that of a real deity. 2 deities fighting in the void, this kind of terrifying power could be imagined. Many people in ancient Weapon City were frightened to see this. The 2 sides fighting were too terrifying, and no one was a match for them. Most people asked themselves if they were a match for such existences. The golden dragon that Ao Shiba blasted out was also a golden color, and it complemented Yi Shiwen's divinity. It looked as if the whole universe was dyed golden. In particular, the golden dragon power that Ao Shiba blasted out was like endless giant waves, and he slashed the waves in the monstrous waves, fighting in the monstrous waves. He was like the Sea Dragon King who truly controlled the world and the sea. This was his domain, and in this domain, he was able to suppress the world. Yi Shiwen also directly launched his domain of the power of wind and thunder, and together with his golden divinity, he constantly attacked Ao Shiba's domain. The two domains were completely tangled together, devouring each other. It looked extremely terrifying. Yi Shiwen casually brandished his offensive, and a variety of martial arts erupted in his hands with incomparable terrifying power. And this time, he used the sky-splitting sword, casually brandishing the sword chi. The sky-splitting sword constantly swallowed and spat out sword chi. At this time, Yi Shiwen had completely integrated with the swordsmanship of the sky-splitting sword. He was incomparably brave, and his whole person was like a sharp sword with boundless wind. What a terrifying swordsmanship. Just now, I thought that he was proficient in boxing. I didn't expect that his cultivation in swordsmanship is not bad, and even a notch higher. At this time, when everyone saw Yi Shiwen fighting with Ao Shiba, they were completely shocked. Yi Shiwen's swordsmanship was too pure. If someone said that he was a peerless swordsman, perhaps most people would completely believe it. At this moment, if they closed their eyes, they would almost feel that Ao Shiba was fighting with a sharp sword in the air. This scene was very shocking. Yi Shiwen has turned himself into a sword. He really wants to become one with the sword. Looking at him, it is like seeing the boundless power of the ancient sword cultivators. Many people were amazed, but Monkey and the others were even more amazed. It was no secret that Yi Shiwen had obtained the sky-splitting sword and the extreme king-shocking sword. However, it was only a little more than a year since Yi Shiwen obtained the sky-splitting sword and the extreme king-shocking sword. In just a little more than a year, Yi Shiwen's understanding of the extreme king-shocking sword had actually reached such a level. It was really amazing. Naturally, they would not know that Yi Shiwen had finally deduced the extreme king-shocking sword to its current level by burning a full 3,000 years of his lifespan. Yi Shiwen relied on his tyrannical gilded tyrant form, and the strength of his body was comparable to a divine tool. Therefore, when he fought, he was simply like a madman. He did not have any defense at all, and just attacked freely. This finally enraged Ao Shiba. Chapter 2240. The physical body of the dragon race was also famous for its tyrannical strength. Many races even used the dragon race as a standard. Not to mention, the five-clawed golden dragon was the most noble of the dragon race. It was the king of the dragons. The strength of its physical body could be imagined. It was as if it was made of steel. Originally, this was what he was good at. He used it to crush his opponents. He was almost invincible. He was fearless even if his realm was higher than his. After all, it was difficult to compare with his physical body. Who would have thought that Yi Shiwen would snatch to such an abnormal extent? Relying on the tyrannical strength of his gilded tyrant form, he did not take Ao Shiba seriously at all. He constantly attacked like a madman, exchanging injury for injury. At least in his opinion, this was a method of exchanging injury for injury. Therefore, he was completely enraged. He felt that he was being provoked. He roared continuously. The blood in his body was surging, making a thunderous sound. It was like the sound of thunder. The momentum was extremely terrifying. He himself was a supreme expert who had proven his Tao, and his power was limitless. The power hidden in his bloodline was instantly stimulated, and the terrifying pressure that belonged to the Golden Dragon clan was also released in an instant, sweeping out with great momentum. Yi Shiwen looked at the changes of Ao Shiba. His expression did not change. He believed that the tyrannical strength of the gilded tyrant form would not lose to anyone. Ao Shiba's strength was tyrannical. He was invincible among his peers. He was definitely a top figure among his peers. It was a pity that he met Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen was even more monstrous. Yi Shiwen was proficient in swordsmanship, boxing, and saber arts. He was invincible, and his physical body was even more tyrannical, especially when he thought of Yi Shiwen's human identity. He was already suppressed by Qin Lai. His heart was even more sullen. It was enough that one person had climbed over his head. Was there going to be another one? Qin Lai was born in a rich and powerful family. The education that he received since childhood was not inferior to him. In fact, it was even better than him. Ever since he was young, he had often gone against the natural order to conquer warriors of a higher realm than him. Even if it was a god, he had the confidence to fight them. He did not care about those of the same generation. He was almost one of the most outstanding geniuses of his race. This time, the weapon Emperor Heaven's treasury wasn't just for the various great forces to join hands and reap benefits. At the same time, it was also a platform for the various great forces to intimidate each other and display their strength. He had originally wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to become the undisputed number one of his generation. Who would have thought that he would suffer at the hands of Qin Lai and Yi Shiwen? Die! Ao Shiba's attack arrived in an instant, and a claw tore through the sky. Yi Shiwen used the space-splitting sword to deflect the claw. He was about to counterattack when a bead suddenly appeared on top of Ao Shiba's head. The pearl began to spin, and in an instant, it emitted an unparalleled pressure that caused the ground to collapse. Could this be a Dragon Ball? Yi Shiwen said in a loud voice. At this moment, even he was somewhat surprised. This was the Dragon Clan's life-bonded magic weapon, the Dragon Ball. The Dragon Clan was a very proud race. For them, there was nothing stronger than themselves. Their flesh was the strongest weapon. Therefore, many of the Dragon Clan did not practice any life-bonded magic weapon at all. Many of them only condensed the Dragon Ball in their body. It was their life-bonded magic weapon, something that concerned their life. It could be said that most of the Dragon Clan's cultivation was concentrated on the Dragon Ball. Once the Dragon Ball was taken out, it could be said that the Dragon Clan had completely brought out their full strength. They were going crazy. Die! You're lucky to die under my Dragon Ball. Ao Shiba's face showed a cruel and sinister smile. The Dragon Ball in his hand erupted with a terrifying power comparable to a divine tool. Moreover, because this was the Dragon Ball that concerned his life, the power it exerted was even stronger. Yi Shiwen felt a little strange. The life-bonded Dragon Ball of the Dragon Clan was indeed very powerful. However, this Dragon Ball had obviously surpassed the demigod realm and entered the Dao confirmation realm. Ao Shiba himself was only in the demigod realm. How could he condense a life-bonded magic weapon of the divine level? This was simply impossible. As soon as the Dragon Ball appeared, a terrifying pressure instantly spread across the entire universe. Even the ancient Tool City was transmitted. In the ancient Tool City, many people were shivering. Those who had not reached the demigod realm were even lying on the ground. In the face of this power, their strength was simply too weak. It was almost like the pressure of a life level. Even a demigod would barely be able to protect himself under the pressure of the Dragon Clan. The horror of this Dragon Ball had exceeded everyone's previous expectations. How can this Dragon Ball be so strong? Even if it is comparable to the Dao confirmation realm, it is still not the Dao confirmation realm. How can it condense a Dragon Ball of the divine tool level? Not only Yi Shiwen, but many people also had the same doubts. To put it in one sentence, it was not scientific. That Dragon Ball of his must have absorbed other Dragon Balls of the divine tool level. That's why it can form such amazing power. Yi Wudi narrowed his eyes and deduced. By doing this, he will definitely be able to increase his strength in a short period of time. Moreover, he will be able to absorb the power sealed in the Dragon Ball. For the Dragon Clan, there is nothing faster than this method of cultivation. However, if he completely refines it, then it will be fine. Otherwise, I'm afraid that his future cultivation will be greatly affected. It seems that being defeated by Qin Lai this time is a great humiliation to him. Otherwise, he would not have chosen such a risky method. Everyone nodded one after another. So that's how it was. This was also normal. Although swallowing the power left in the Dragon Ball by others could improve quickly, how could there not be any side effects? Even if they were all from the Dragon Clan, their power could not be completely compatible, let alone synchronize. However, the short-term benefits of doing this were also immeasurable. It was easy to improve one's cultivation in a short period of time. But unless one had already determined that he had no future, it was impossible to sacrifice his long-term benefits in exchange for short-term benefits. The powerful coercion of the Dragon Ball almost crushed Yi Shiwen in an instant. At the same time, the Dragon Ball continuously rushed out and poured into Shiba's body. Although the Dragon Ball is good, I think you are thinking too much if you want to rely on the Dragon Ball to suppress me. Yi Shiwen decisively attacked. The sword light in his hand danced, and a huge sword chi river instantly formed. It broke through the sky and blasted towards Shiba. Boom! A terrifying force swept out and directly hit the Dragon Ball. Then, it directly passed to Shiba's body. His whole body was slightly numb. The terrifying pressure that was deliberately created by the Dragon Pearl was also completely broken in an instant. Shiba was almost paralyzed. He was shocked. He did not expect that even under such circumstances, Yi Shiwen could still burst out such amazing power. He did not know that the sky-splitting sword in Yi Shiwen's hand was also a divine sword. It was not afraid of his Dragon Ball at all. In addition, his current cultivation was comparable to the Tao-confirming realm. He could fully exert the power of the sky-splitting sword. Therefore, his Dragon Ball was of no use to Yi Shiwen at all. King's Descent. Yi Shiwen let out a loud roar and condensed all the real elemental energy in his body. His real elemental energy was raised to the peak in an instant and then transformed into sword energy, forming a mighty star river. It suddenly broke through the vast sky and fiercely chopped down. Boom! The sky was shattered in an instant. Yi Shiwen no longer wanted to talk nonsense with Shiba. He raised the power of his whole body and turned it into a full blow. Clang! The sky-splitting sword slashed on the Dragon Ball. In an instant, there was no sound in the world. All gazes and lights were focused on this point. After an unknown amount of time, perhaps it was a second, perhaps it was a century, but the two powerful forces finally completely mixed together and erupted. Crack, crack! The enchantment created by the Dragon Ball was instantly shattered as if it had suffered a terrible blow. It was completely shattered. The sky-splitting sword slashed on the Dragon Ball. An even more terrifying scene happened. A crack appeared on the Dragon Ball. Although it was only a small crack, it was terrifying enough. The Dragon Ball was the hardest part of a dragon's body. It was even harder than the scales on their body. It could almost be used as a magic tool. Now, Yi Shiwen had actually slashed a crack on it. Similarly, because the Dragon Ball was very difficult to damage, once it was damaged, it would be a huge problem for the dragon race. Even Yi Shiwen was a little stunned. He had used the sky-splitting sword to slash the king's tyrannical descent, but it could only slash a small crack. The Dragon Ball was indeed the hardest part of the dragon race. In addition, it was the Dragon Ball of a 5-clawed golden dragon. It was even harder than before. But even so, it did not matter to him. He did not need to break the Dragon Ball to defeat Shiba. Roar! Shiba's face was ashen. He was completely angry and crazy. The golden dragon chi in his body was boiling. It was dazzling and murderous. How dare you? How dare you touch my Dragon Ball? Shiba had gone completely crazy. In order to fight against Qin Lai, he had adopted this risky method to absorb the Dragon Ball of a deceased senior in his clan to quickly increase his cultivation. This method worked quickly, but the consequences were very serious. It made his already narrow future even narrower. Now, Yi Shiwen had even slashed a crack on his Dragon Ball. Although it was only a crack, it represented that it was not perfect. It made it almost impossible for his future path to be perfect. Cutting off one's path to wealth was like killing one's parents. Not to mention cutting off one's future path to the Tao. It was simply impossible to wash away. Chapter 2241. One could imagine how angry Shiba was. The anger in his heart could not be washed away, even with all the water in the heavenly river. Yi Shiwen, you will definitely die today. Shiba was completely mad. His eyes were red, and the dragon chi in his body was constantly condensing. Even his Dragon Ball was burning fiercely. A powerful force burst out and poured into Shiba's body. His entire aura became completely different in an instant. Shiba looked like he was undergoing a metamorphosis. The terrifying dragon chi surged out like the roar of a giant dragon. The boundless coercion swept out, giving people an unimaginably terrifying power. It was hard to imagine what kind of frightening power it would be if it were to land on a person's body. Yi Shiwen, Ao Shiba roared, and his whole body flew out. He directly grabbed out with his claw, and the sky was about to collapse. Yi Shiwen's palms suddenly turned golden red, and a terrifying power surged on it to meet the dragon claw. Clang! There was a deafening sound of collision, and the aftermath of the explosion erupted. An incomparably terrifying scene occurred in an instant. Ao Shiba's strength had increased by several times compared to before, and it was almost equivalent to the level that could be achieved by burning his life force. The effect of burning the Dragon Ball was almost the same. One could imagine how powerful the Dragon Ball was. Do you think this will work? It's useless. In front of my strength, everything you have is so laughable. Yi Shiwen did not care at all. Facing the explosive Ao Shiba, he just constantly pinched the overturning sky seal and smashed it down. Bang! 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 He kept smashing towards Ao Shiba. Ao Shiba was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. It was obvious that he had exploded, but in reality, it did not look like this at all. It seemed like Yi Shiwen had exploded. What made him even more frightened was that even though he had exploded, he felt a sense of powerlessness when facing Yi Shiwen. He was completely powerless. Dragon Roar! All of a sudden, Ao Shiba instilled all of his dragon chi into his dragon claw. The power of the dragon chi rampaged and shattered the void. It was as if he wanted to claw Yi Shiwen to death. It's useless. I told you that your resistance is too weak in front of my absolute strength. Your biggest mistake is that you didn't join hands with Mo Jingde. You might have had a chance of winning if you had joined hands. However, you have no chance of winning in front of me, Yi Shiwen said. He immediately launched a counterattack, and a sky-flipping seal smashed down. Bang! Ao Shiba's claw, which had exhausted all of his dragon chi, was smashed by Yi Shiwen. Then, numerous cracks appeared on the claw, and it completely shattered in an instant, turning into energy that filled the sky. This all-out attack was easily broken by Yi Shiwen. This made Ao Shiba finally sober up. He was very angry at first. He was a peerless genius of the five-clawed Golden Dragon clan, but he was actually suppressed by Yi Shiwen. However, he was not a fool. How could he not understand that Yi Shiwen had probably reached a terrifying realm? He almost immediately wanted to retreat. He did not dare to continue fighting with Yi Shiwen. The fear in his heart dominated everything, and he did not dare to go against Yi Shiwen at all. Ao Shiba, aren't you proud? Didn't you never put ordinary humans in your eyes? Let me tell you, I'm just an ordinary human, but I'm going to destroy the pride of the so-called dragon race's heaven's chosen one. Yi Shiwen roared and directly chased after Ao Shiba. He did not give Ao Shiba the slightest chance to escape. Ao Shiba was so angry that he wanted to die. He had never suffered such a big loss. Moreover, Yi Shiwen still dared to say that he was an ordinary human. If every ordinary human was so terrifying, then he, a so-called genius, would have died a long time ago. However, he did not dare to argue at this time, or rather, he did not have the time to argue at all. He knew very well that he could only retreat at this time, and then find an opportunity to kill Yi Shiwen. Although he wanted to retreat, he was not scared by Yi Shiwen. He just waited for an opportunity to kill Yi Shiwen. Such a scourge must not be allowed to continue to exist. Qin Lai alone was enough to make people depressed, not to mention that there was also Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen, what are you trying to do? Ao Shiba roared loudly. What am I trying to do? You want to kill me, so I will kill you. It's that simple. Yi Shiwen directly tore the sky, making Ao Shiba's self-defense counterattack completely ineffective, and all of them were blasted into the Chaos Rift. Then his attack followed like a shadow. Almost instantly, his overturning sky seal smashed down, and an amazing divine light suddenly erupted from his hand. Bang! The overturning sky seal was covered with terrifying godly laws, directly forming a series of Tao patterns and talismans, giving him unimaginable power. This was a very powerful cultivation technique, and when cultivated to a deep level, it was not inferior to any other cultivation technique. Puff! Ao Sheba spat out a mouthful of dragon blood, and his whole body smashed into the ancient weapon city like a meteor, almost smashing through the city. Such frightening strength and hand strength left everyone speechless. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. If such strength were to fall on a human body, how terrifying would it be? More importantly, such a tyrannical existence like Ao Sheba was defeated so easily. He was not a match for Yi Shiwen at all. No matter how pleasant his words were, it could not change the fact that he was defeated by Yi Shiwen. I'm afraid that no one under Tao confirmation can suppress this Yi Shiwen. Yeah, I'm afraid that's true. The strongest half-step Tao confirmation existence I've seen is Ao Sheba, but he is actually not a match for Yi Shiwen. How strong is he? Everyone was talking about it. They couldn't believe it at all. They probably didn't know that Yi Shiwen had already killed 2 gods. Not to mention those under Tao confirmation. Even those who had reached Tao confirmation couldn't do anything to Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen took a step forward and chased after Ao Sheba. He wanted to end Ao Sheba's life, although he also knew that it might cause the wrath of Dragon Island. He could also feel Ao Sheba's murderous intention towards him. Weeds will grow again if the roots are not removed. Suddenly, he felt an incomparably tyrannical aura completely locked onto him, causing his movements to stagnate, thus allowing Ao Sheba to escape and roll to the side. Ao Sheba could not help but gasp, his eyes filled with shock and anger. He was thoroughly enraged, and the murderous intent in his heart intensified. He would never let Yi Shiwen go so easily. Who's there? Come out! Yi Shiwen did not care about chasing after a stray dog like Ao Sheba. Instead, he looked above ancient weapon city. Just now, someone had used divine telekinesis to disturb him at the crucial moment. Otherwise, how could Ao Sheba have escaped? At this moment, an old man in black clothes slowly walked out of the void, looking at Yi Shiwen. This old man is this ancient weapon city's temporary city lord. If the 2 of you cause trouble here, I'm afraid it will not be good for deity transformation Abyss or Dragon Island's reputation. Yi Shiwen was shocked. This old man in black clothes was actually the temporary city lord of ancient weapon city, but that was not a big deal. The key point was that Yi Shiwen felt a kind of unfathomable feeling from this old man. Until now, those who could still give Yi Shiwen such a feeling, without exception, were all Tao confirmation powerhouses, and they were probably not weak among the immortal level powerhouses. Yi Shiwen had not reached that level yet, so he could not see how powerful the ancient weapon city lord was, but he could still feel this shocking degree. If you wanted to stop it, you could have done it a long time ago. Did you have to wait until I had the upper hand? Yi Shiwen said discontentedly, his tone faintly unhappy. I also did not expect that the battle would end so easily. The ancient weapon city lord laughed bitterly and said, moreover, this kind of battle has always been happening. However, if I did not come out to stop it, Yi Shiwen, were you planning to kill Ao Sheba? Yes, so what? Yi Shiwen said indifferently, not denying it. You, how arrogant! Ao Sheba was shocked and angry. Yi Shiwen actually nodded in agreement without hiding it. When he thought of the trip to the gates of hell just now, his whole body felt terrible, and he felt a chill down his spine. Can I be compared to you? Yi Shiwen could not help but sneer. You want to kill me, but I can't kill you. Ao Sheba was speechless. Although he indeed thought so, he could not say it. Most importantly, he was completely beaten up by Yi Shiwen like a wild dog, so he was in no position to say anything. If the 2 of you were in other places, I would not care. However, in ancient weapon city, I do not wish for any murders to occur. Otherwise, I will apply to deity transformation Abyss and Dragon Island to cancel your qualifications to enter Tool Emperor Heaven this time. Don't think that I can't do it. Although I am only a small city lord, I can still make this decision. The ancient weapon city lord glanced at the 2 and said. There was a faint threat and absolute confidence in his words. In this place, even Dragon Island and deity Transformation Abyss could not ignore his role and opinion. All right, I will give you face. I will not say anything here, Aoshiba said while gritting his teeth. Give him face? With just you? Yi Shiwen sneered, as if he was laughing at Aoshiba's act of trying to save face for him. However, he still stopped his pursuit of Aoshiba. Although Aoshiba was a disaster, it was not worthwhile to lose the qualification to enter the Tool Emperor Heaven just to kill him. Today, I will give you face, Yi Shiwen said. Chapter 2242. Yi Shiwen glanced at Aoshiba. Killing Aoshiba was not the main issue right now. If he was chased out, it would be a huge loss. Most importantly, this ancient weapon city lord gave him an unfathomable and unimaginable feeling. Every time Weapon Emperor Heaven opened a weak spot here, it was undoubtedly a very meaningful stronghold for the various forces that had ambitions towards Weapon Emperor Heaven. However, Ancient Artifact City had been able to remain independent of the various forces for a long time. Aside from the fact that the various forces kept each other in check, the city lord of Ancient Artifact City was also a very important reason. Only by truly controlling enough power would one have the right to speak. Both of you are willing to give this old man face. This old man is very grateful. The Ancient Weapon City lord nodded, seemingly quite satisfied. I don't care if you fight, but I hope that before the matter of Weapon Emperor Heaven is over, there will not be any murders in Ancient Weapon City. Otherwise, it will not look good for everyone. The crowd fell silent. Facing this unfathomable Ancient Weapon City lord, it seemed that no one wanted to challenge his authority in Ancient Weapon City. Yi Shiwen's gaze swept across the depths of the universe. There were many hidden tyrannical auras, faintly containing terrifying auras. The corners of his lips curled up. These old fellows really had a good plan. They probably wanted him and Aoshiba to suffer heavy injuries. This time, there were many old monsters who had lived for many years who had entered the Weapon Sovereign Heaven. Although they had yet to prove their Tao, they had many terrifying methods that they could use. Killing Aoshiba was not a big deal, but Yi Shiwen did not want to let them have their way. After all, after entering, there would be plenty of time. In Weapon Emperor Heaven, all the mysteries of heaven would be blocked. No one would know what had happened. Aoshiba looked at Yi Shiwen hatefully and disappeared into the depths of the universe. He no longer had the face to stay here. It was simply too shameful. Not only had his two subordinates been beheaded by Yi Shiwen, but he had also been beaten up by Yi Shiwen. He was sure that if the old city lord of Ancient Tool City hadn't suddenly appeared, this bastard Yi Shiwen would have dared to kill him. Not only Aoshiba, but also Emojinga. Yi Shiwen had completely slapped his face. Previously, he had wanted to embarrass deity Transformation Abyss, but now, he was the one embarrassed. Yi Shiwen, I must kill you. Emojinga's eyes were bloodshot. He couldn't swallow this anger. However, they had the same thought as Yi Shiwen. There would be plenty of opportunities to solve this problem after they entered the Tool Emperor Heaven. The final ending came to an end with Yi Shiwen's complete victory. He had consecutively defeated two great experts, but he didn't show the slightest sign of decline. On the contrary, it seemed that he was still in his peak state. This had left many experts secretly speechless. No one dared to underestimate Yi Shiwen anymore. After all, his strength was top-notch among them. And Yi Shiwen had become one of the most threatening people in everyone's hearts after this battle. Yi Shiwen said a few words to the people of Transforming God Abyss, then left Ancient Tool City with Yi Wudi. The two brothers hadn't seen each other for a long time, and they didn't want to be watched and guarded by others in Ancient Tool City. They arrived at a deserted area in the depths of the nearby universe. As soon as the two of them arrived, they began to fight with tacit understanding. They didn't give in to each other. Both of them had the intention to fight with all their strength, but they didn't try to kill each other. Thus, this battle lasted for 3 days, and it was earth-shattering. In these 3 days, both of them had gained a lot. Whether it was Yi Shiwen or Yi Wudi, both of them were well-known figures. Ordinary people couldn't compare to them. The fact that they were able to cultivate to this level with their current crushing speed meant that they were all world-shaking geniuses. None of them had advanced to this level by luck. As they fought, they comprehended and explained to each other what they had comprehended without holding anything back. Both of them suddenly saw the light, and they had a clear belief in their next step of cultivation. Their paths were different, but they were all the same. At their level, they were all masters of their generation. Things like drawing parallels and drawing inferences about other things from one instance were as easy as lifting a finger. There was no difficulty at all. The battle lasted for 3 days and 3 nights before it ended. Both of them had gained something, and they needed time to digest it. Most importantly, it was time for the Tool Emperor Heaven to open. You have to be careful. I'm afraid they won't let you go so easily. Don't underestimate them. Whether it's Dragon Island or the Finger Heaven sect, they're not ordinary people. What you can see now is only a part of their power. Once you go in, they'll definitely gather their strength to deal with you. When that time comes, don't run all over the world. Yi Wuti reminded before they parted. I'll kill as many as they come. What's there to be afraid of? Besides, no one will come to kill you even if you have such an annoying name. What's there to worry about? Yi Shiwen said with a smile. It was as if he had returned to hundreds of years ago, when they first met. That was the time when he was truly a teenager. He still looked the same, but his mentality wasn't the same. Yi Wuti rolled his eyes at Yi Shiwen and said, Don't ask me to help you when you're chased like a stray dog. Yi Shiwen shrugged and said indifferently, It's not certain who will help who. A large hole was opened in the instrument Emperor Heaven. Many tyrannical auras extended from the distant void to maintain the operation of this large hole. This large hole would operate for 10 years before closing. This was a space opened by many unknown powerhouses. Otherwise, how could it withstand the crushing of the instrument Emperor Heaven's planar will? When a huge hole opened up in the weapon's sovereign heaven, the entire cosmos could feel a powerful pressure sweeping out. This was the place where a sovereign monarch had once attained his Tao, leaving behind the eternal and boundless pressure of a sovereign monarch. Yi Shiwen and Yi Wuti rushed back when they felt it. Many people around them were paying attention, but not many dared to go in. It was too dangerous inside. Countless wisps of precious energy rushed into the sky, bringing with them countless whistling sounds, sweeping outwards, causing people to shiver even though it wasn't cold. The aura of a peerless expert within was shocking. 100,000 years, 100,000 years. It's finally here. This time I must find the real divine tool. At that time, I won't have to be afraid of anyone. But this time, there are many tyrannical existences. I'm afraid it won't be easy for us to seize the divine tool. At this time, many wills soared into the sky and flew into the huge hole in the instrument Emperor Heaven. Countless treasures rushed out from this hole. The entire instrument Emperor Heaven was like a huge balloon that was deflating. What a powerful aura! It's worthy of being called the instrument Emperor Heaven. Many people were completely shocked when they sensed the aura. Everyone knew that the more powerful a world was, the more powerful the world would be. Even if the world itself was essentially the same, it would still have a subtle influence on the aura of the entire world. As for the aura of the heavenly equipment Emperor Heaven, it was possible to sense an aura that caused people to tremble. Everyone couldn't help but be shocked. It was unimaginable how many powerful existences were hidden in it. Legend has it that those powerful deity experts don't dare to enter the instrument Emperor Heaven. In addition to the powerful suppression of the instrument Emperor Heaven itself, they also made an agreement with the tyrannical experts in the instrument Emperor Heaven. There are king-level experts there, but they don't dare to enter. Isn't the instrument Emperor Heaven too strong? Someone said in a daze. This was a legend. No one dared to confirm it. Except for deities, no one could live forever. Even for long-lived races, 100,000 years was too long. It was long enough to experience the rise and fall of a generation or even several generations. Therefore, none of these people had experienced the last opening of the instrument Emperor Heaven. They could only rely on the letters of their predecessors to judge some things. No one knew whether it was true or not, But the instrument Emperor Heaven was probably more dangerous and terrifying than everyone had imagined. Even the many geniuses who were close to the Tao confirmation or the peak of the half-step realm changed their expressions at this time. They generally had no idea how powerful the instrument Emperor Heaven was. However, they only hesitated for a moment. Then, like many of their predecessors, they rushed in one after another. Hundreds and thousands of auras rushed in groups. There were also powerful experts who rushed in alone. However, the weaker ones didn't have 100% confidence in their own strength. So, they rushed in groups. Even if there were many existences among them who were comparable to the Tao confirmation, they were still vulnerable compared to some of the ancient existences in the instrument Emperor Heaven. Yi Xuan rushed in the first moment, but he didn't rush in immediately. He quietly observed from the side. These people who rushed in were all within his calculations. All of them fell into his eyes. At a glance, he understood. Although he went in a bit late, he also obtained some information about his opponents. This time, he entered the instrument Emperor Heaven. There were many dangers in the instrument Emperor Heaven, but the threat was not as big as these competitors. With the opening of the instrument Emperor Heaven, many old monsters who were originally hidden in various parts of the universe rushed out one after another. Even the old monsters who were originally hidden so well that even Yi Xuan couldn't detect them now fell into Yi Xuan's eyes. There were really many experts among them. Many auras were comparable to the Tao confirmation. Among them, the outstanding ones even made Yi Xuan feel frightened to the point of just relying on their profound skills. It was unknown if they had accumulated skills for tens of thousands of years. They could crush people to death without any skills. Powerful experts rushed in one after another to seize the initiative. After Yi Xuan confirmed that most of the experts had entered, he didn't wait any longer. Demon wings appeared behind his back. His whole body instantly turned into a golden light and rushed into the instrument Emperor Heaven. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.